NASA's Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope watches the sky for gamma rays, the highest energy form of light. These detections help scientists learn more about the most powerful events in the cosmos. However, a recent absence of gamma ray detection may have been just as informative. Cosmic rays are small particles like protons and helium nuclei traveling at nearly the speed of light. It takes a lot of energy to accelerate them to that speed, so scientists assume they're driven by powerful events like exploding stars, called supernovae. Because cosmic rays are charged particles, they interact with magnetic fields as they travel. These interactions mean they don't follow a straight line from their sources, and so scientists can't trace where they came from. But when cosmic rays smash into other particles, they produce gamma rays. And gamma rays do travel to us straight from their sources. Fermi has even detected such gamma rays from supernova remnants, which are thousands of years old. If supernovae and their remnants really are a key source of cosmic rays, then calculations tell astronomers how many gamma rays Fermi should detect. But so far, the telescope hasn't seen enough gamma rays from these sources. Scientists had suspected this was because the supernovae were too far away, or observations began too late, well after peak production. In May 2023, Fermi observed the most luminous nearby supernova seen since the mission launched 15 years ago. It captured data from the first few weeks of the explosion, when scientists anticipated the greatest production of cosmic rays. But Fermi didn't see any gamma rays from the explosion. Scientists aren't yet sure what this means for the link between cosmic rays and supernovae. There's still a lot of work left to do. But Fermi's non-detection has added a very important new piece to this high-energy puzzle.
Well, hello everyone. This is Scott Roberts, and my co-host David Levy is on with us tonight, and we took a fairly long hiatus. We had a wonderful total eclipse of the sun. We got back, we rested a couple of days, and then we headed off to the Northeast Astronomy Forum, where actually several of the people that are on, or at least a couple of the people that are on tonight were actually there at NEAF. You could have met them in person if you'd been there. David Levy gave a spectacular talk, and I had many people run up to me and exclaim how amazing his talk was. And so unfortunately, I was there working the booth at the same time, so I couldn't be there. But I did see him on the big screen because they did project it out into the vendor area, which was kind of cool. And so anyways, but sadly, David's he's got more than a cough. He somehow got COVID during this event. So he's taken it like a trooper, and he's here tonight. So David, thanks for coming on. We're not going to make you talk too much because it's tough right now.
Well, thank you, Scotty. I sound a lot worse than I feel. I'm feeling a lot better.
Good.
I enjoyed the eclipse immensely. It was probably a mistake for me to go to NEAF. But when I got back from NEAF, I came back with COVID and was diagnosed only yesterday, but tested positive for that. So I'm just going to do the quotation and then be done.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a very short. I hope I don't give any of you COVID through the internet.
It won't happen through the Global Star Party. That's one thing I can guarantee. You know, you won't get COVID from many of us.
Okay.
So.
Anyway, it was so good to see some old friends like Dave Eicher, and it's good to be back here and see Adrian and Don and some of the other good friends that I've missed a lot. Anyway, my quotation today is a limerick. It was written by Reginald Butler in Punch magazine in 1923. And then it was eventually copied into the Journal of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. And it's called Relativity. There was a young lady named Bright whose speed was far faster than light. She set out one day in a relative way and returned home the previous night. And that's it for today. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. Well, that's great. We will we will move along here, and David, you get better soon.
I will try
Okay.
a
All
little
right.
bit.
Our next speaker is none other than David Eicher. David is a member of not just a member. He's pretty much embodies the spirit of Astronomy Magazine. That's Can I just say that? I mean, can we just he is the spiritual force, the leader of that amazing magazine, which has been going on for many decades, and he's also one of the organizers of the Starmus event that's coming up, and he also established an event in Tucson, Arizona, which I hope to attend one day. But they have a star party out there, and and I know that David Levy speaks at that event, so it would be a lot of fun for me to be there. Hoping that all of you are doing your best to stay healthy, and but at the same time getting out there, because these events are starting to open up, and so it's a privilege, I think, at any time to be with your peers, your family of astronomers. There's a special feeling about that. Going through the whole pandemic experience when we were in lockdown, and we couldn't go to such events because they were literally canceled. But feeling that camaraderie and that energy that comes when you're out there with your friends and with people that you admire in the astronomy world, and seeing them in person. Speaking and engaging with the audience is really, really cool. So, and David Eicher was right there. He was with his partner in crime behind the Astronomy Magazine desk, and he was actually right next to us. So that was very, very nice. And so hopefully in future NEAFs that we can arrange that same kind of situation. But David, thanks for coming on tonight. Now, you're going to talk about, I guess am I right? It's a pair of galaxies that,
an interacting pair of galaxies. This is called Kinnon system, after the prominent Ohio State astronomer Philip Kinnon, who was around for many years. He passed away in the year 2000, but he was a prominent professor and galaxy researcher, among other things. And as we know, there are many, many, many interesting interacting galaxy systems in the sky, despite the fact that everything is, the universe is expanding. And of course, the universal expansion is accelerating over time, as we know for a generation now from dark energy. But of course, on small scales, gravity wins. Isaac Newton is still around for us, and we have a lot of interaction between galaxies that are in close proximity to each other. And so this is another good example, as we work our way through many, 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 many deep sky objects to talk about in the future here. Another good example of an interacting galaxy pair, which can be observed in backyard telescopes.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, well, I'll let you have the stage here.
Thank you, Scott. And I certainly hope that we'll be close together as well at future NEAFs, because we were close enough to joke around a lot and cause a lot of trouble, which is always good. But we behaved ourselves for the most part, didn't we?
Yeah, next time I'm bringing spitballs, though.
Oh, dear God. Okay. Well, we're really going to have to behave ourselves then. And And we'll have fun at Starmus, of course, in the future as well. So
Sure.
I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to share the right thing on my screen, and then I'm going to see if I can kick out here and start a slideshow. And can you see the
Like a
prominent,
pro.
speaking of interacting galaxies, can
Yeah.
you see the prominent galaxy merger Centaurus A in the wonderful
Yes.
southern hemisphere sky?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Looks very nice.
Good. Well, don't pay attention to that. It has nothing to do with anything. Okay, forget that you even saw that. Never mind. It's just a placeholder. But it is a great object. And as we've talked about from time to time, maybe long, long, long after we're gone from our planet here, independent of not taking care of the planet, but 5 or 6 billion years from now, the Milky Way and Andromeda will merge and possibly produce something like we see in Centaurus A. So this may be a vision of our future. But for now, we will talk about Canaan system, as I mentioned. And this is a pair of interacting galaxies in Ursa Major. We're still working through the northern sky. It consists of NGC 5216 and 5218, and also appears on our old friend Halton ARP's catalog as ARP 104. So it has multiple designations in various catalogs and was studied by Philip Canaan, who was a longtime professor, as I mentioned, of astronomy at the Ohio State University. And he collaborated, of course, a lot with, among other projects during his long career with William W. Morgan, and produced, of course, a very important work, the Morgan-Canaan classification system of stellar spectra. So that's a very important thing in the history of 20th century astrophysics. And if you want to know how old our friend Michael Bakich is, I don't think he's watching right now, so I'm going to go ahead and say this. Michael had Philip Canaan as a professor at Ohio State.
Wow.
So, wow. Yeah. Yep.
That's old.
So time rolls on, huh? NGC 5216 is a barred spiral, and NGC 5218 is a lenticular, is this lens-shaped, if you will, between spirals and ellipticals, with some attributes of each. The galaxies, what makes it really interesting here, and you can image this, of course, with reasonably large telescopes and sophisticated backyard photography, a very long bridge of luminous material. It's about 22,000 light years long, that arcs between the two, because tidal forces, of course, as galaxies pass each other, will draw material off, just as tidal forces in the Milky Way. This is why we're not in the middle of an open star cluster after 4.6 billion years, because all of the sun's sisters have been scattered through tidal forces as we orbit the galactic center. So these are relatively faint galaxies visually of about 12th and 14th magnitude, but somewhat easier to image than observe. The system was discovered by William Herschel, our old friend, in 1790. And in 1935, Canaan began to study this system among his many objects of interest, which makes the fact that Michael was one of his students at Ohio State even more impressive. Okay? But Michael actually attended Ohio State University a short time after the 1930s. Just seeing if you're paying attention here, okay. I hope Michael isn't watching now. Okay. So here is this. What's that?
I should call him and get him to watch the
Oh,
program.
yikes! He may never speak to me for a while. Yeah. So this is near a juncture of one edge now of Ron Stoyan's really nice Interstellarum Deep Sky Atlas. But over here near the left edge, you can see the two galaxies sort of sitting on top of each other, Canaan system in northern Ursa Major. So we're still working our way through here. And obviously Ursa Major has a lot of other faint galaxies in its boundaries. And here you go. You can see the barred spiral on the upper left and the lenticular galaxy on the lower, well, just right of center. There are lots of background galaxies as well in this image, really nice image taken from Mount Lemmon by Adam Block. And you can see that long tidal arc between the two galaxies and extending to the right of the lenticular there. So this is really an interesting, typical of many, many interacting systems. But Canaan was really transfixed on studying this and did a lot of work on galaxy dynamics with the system. So that's it. Canaan system. Again, I'm pleading with astro imagers, and observers who shoot the same 150 objects over and over and over and over and over and over to go out and shoot some different things, because the sky has thousands of interesting targets to go out and observe and image. Unfortunately, it may not have quite as many faint targets as we used to have a generation ago, because the upcoming issue of Astronomy does a full dive, as we do once in a while, into what we can do about light pollution, which is not a whole lot right now, unfortunately. But of course, as we learn to aim photons downward toward the ground, as they do in some places, see Tucson and Flagstaff, for example, rather than blasting them skyward, maybe we'll save a lot of money and stop writing such large checks to energy companies and not pollute the sky so much, so that we have a dark sky perhaps sometime in the future. So that's what the next upcoming issue of Astronomy is all about. And again, Scott, I think, mentioned it briefly here, but we're on the cusp now that we've had an eclipse and we've had Neve, now the third in this trio of chaos here, is going to Slovakia next week. And Michael and I actually, along with a couple of other folks, will be doing an astrophotography school. We'll be doing a star party at a castle that is mostly from the 12th century, but actually dates back to the 9th century. Called Devon Castle outside of Bratislava. And thanks to Scott for organizing and putting together a large part of that event. And it's a shame, Scott, that you'll be busy with other things and won't be there, but we'll get you there to the next Starmus.
Okay.
And I will be hosting Starmus on stage and speaking about galaxies and hanging out with our board of interesting folks who are on the board of directors of Starmus, and we've added two this year who we're really proud of. One of them is Jane Goodall. You can't mention too many sciences where one person is essentially the science, the leader in the science. Well, maybe Jane Goodall in primatology and studying chimpanzees is that for that area of science. She's a terrific person, of course. And the other one is Jean-Michel Jarre, the French musician who, if you look up in the Guinness Book of World Records, has played the largest concerts in history ever. And the very largest one was to a live crowd of 1.5 million people in Moscow in 2007. Well, we're going to start, not to give too much away, with a spectacular concert event that will be open to the public in Bratislava, that will also include our pal Brian May. And that's going to be the way that we're going to kick off Starmus this time. So we hope that if you don't join us, it's a hop, skip, and a jump from Vienna, Austria, which is easy to get to. But you'll certainly be reading about a lot of incredible talks that will be given there by astronauts and Nobel Prize winners and other leaders in many sciences. So that's coming up next week already.
Great.
So Scott, that's what I have.
Okay.
Today.
Okay. All right. Well, there are some comments and questions.
Yeah.
And so I asked the audience, if they knew about Canaan's system.
Yeah.
And basically, a lot, in our audience anyways, they're all like, no, have not. One of the questions is, what size telescope would you need to actually observe this and see, or could you see the light bridge visually?
And of course, it depends critically on how good a sky you have, and how dark it is. And of course, you need a moonless sky for really good deep sky observing. You can see some objects that are very challenging that are, thought to be visible in 16-inch telescopes in a 6-inch telescope in a really good, dark, pristine sky. for example, the Atacama Desert in Chile. So it depends on the sky that you have. But I think for a good, ordinary dark sky in a moonless situation, if you had a 10 or a 12-inch reflector, you could see this pair of galaxies pretty well. Now, the light bridge is very faint, so you have to go up to a very large club telescope to see the light bridge visually, but it's much easier, as Adam demonstrated there for us, to image, of course, over
Understood.
a
Understood.
long
So,
period.
yeah.
So
So
again,
you
it
guys,
critically depends on having a dark sky to push the limits of deep sky observing. When I first got into this, the book said you couldn't see the Veil Nebula in an 8-inch telescope. Well, I got a
right.
C8 when I was 16 years old, went out, and the first night, it was the middle of the night, and Cygnus was up, and I saw the Veil Nebula on the first night, and you were not supposed to see it. So a lot lot of what's written about is not
That's because your eyes
necessarily,
dilate to like what,
yeah.
12 millimeters or
Well,
something,
that's
right?
true. And
Yeah,
dark adaptation is important as well. But
true.
a lot of what's been written about, can be off because, people are not necessarily looking at ideal situations, with a dark sky and et cetera. But I
Mhm.
think a 10 or a 12-inch scope in ordinarily good skies would show this galaxy pair pretty nicely. You could see
Mhm.
it in a 6 or an 8-inch scope, but it wouldn't knock your socks off.
Right, right. Well, I mean, just seeing it at all, I think would thrill a
Yeah,
lot of us that are into deep sky.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so I mean, I'm one of those nerds that you just a faint whisper of the light from a distant galaxy gets me pretty excited. So that
And I'm
tells you
with
a
you.
lot about me. Okay, so
I'm right there with you, Scott. And I love imaging, and what you can do as an amateur now, imaging is
oh,
astonishing
it's
compared to
crazy.
20 or 10 or 20 years ago. It's
Yeah,
incredible now
yeah,
what you can do and the ease with which you could do it. You used to have to be in a sort of a servitude slave camp, for 5 years to be good at imaging. Now you can go out, and if you drop some coin, you can, and there are people we've never heard of who are imaging legitimately, not with any AI tomfoolery, who are legitimately imaging things that are incredible now on their first few months of imaging. But like you, Scott, I'm more of a visual guy. I like those live photons
me
best,
too.
striking the eye and seeing
Yeah,
the real object as you really see it as a human being. There's something that's pretty special about that as well.
right. Because it's you and the instrument, the night sky, and that object. Then it's all happening. I don't know. It's hard to explain it until you've done it. And a lot of people here, of course, are the converted, and they know what we're talking about. But aside, broaching the subject of astrophotography, probably no magazine has shown more astrophotographs over the years than Astronomy Magazine. When astronomy first came out, I remember some of the very first issues. It was like a scientific publication, and some images, but and then later, there was more amazing images that would come out, and and now it's like it's beautiful. The galleries that you guys have in it, the astrophotographers that you guys find. So I mean, what can you tell us as far as today's astronomy magazine? What does it take to actually get your images, in the publication itself, and what does it take to get on the front cover?
That's a good question, Scott.
I
And
was going to jump in on that because
yeah, yeah.
I saw the June issue and I saw some of the images in the June issue, and it brought a real big smile to my face.
Well, one of
And
our pals here is a feature article astro imager in Astronomy Magazine here for the first time, and I'm sure not the last time. So
oh,
Adrian can talk a little bit about this.
yeah, and it did help to talk to, well, to be here in Global Star Party, to share the images on Global Star Party, and to talk to you about those images. Um, I would say to anyone, just be brave enough to talk to the right people. I think a lot of times we want to image and we want to show it off to our friends and post online and do things. Find a theme for what it is. Everybody, like you've said, David, everybody images the Rosette Nebula. And everybody images, and in the wide space field, everybody images a certain way. The Orion side, there's a lot of HA that gets shown, and the images of our galactic center, to the point where a lot of folks feel like Milky Way season is when the galactic center rises in the northern hemisphere, and there's just so much more to that. So you set your own theme and your own direction and say, this is what I want to do, this is my view of the universe, and I want to show it. And mine was, I want to include Earth, and I want to just show people when I go outside at night, this is what I see, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. And now I want to present it. Then you talk to someone like Dave Eicher, you get your chance to share it. I have to thank David, who's stepped away, but David Levy, anyone who is a hardened astronomer or who's been doing it for years, if they look at your work and it moves them, you're going to have an opportunity. And then you have to want the opportunity to share it, write an article about it, and you have to want to share this work. There are a lot of interesting images that have come out, and astrophotographers have done it for money.
This is your first time to be in Astronomy magazine, okay?
Yes.
World's biggest publication on astronomy, okay? How does that feel to you? What would you?
Relief for one, because it finally came out. And despite the fact that here you have a Wolverine and all this talk about Ohio State, astronomy truly brings everyone together. And it's one of those things that we had Global Star Party, we were talking COVID, and yet here we all are together, and we've been doing it when we could. For I think I have something from 3 years ago when I first started doing Global Star Party. So it's going on. It feels great to have those pictures and to be able to show them to people and say, look, I've been published. And in addition to that, one of the pictures and one of the places that's bought some of my work actually has some of it on a billboard on a highway. So there's actually a billboard photo somewhere. And I think I have it somewhere. I'll have to find.
It's got to be like the equivalent of being a musician and hearing
your work on the radio
for the first time.
It is. It really is. Yeah. And then there's two things you can do. You can say, look, I made it. And then you can act like a celebrity and ask everyone to buy you drinks. Or you can say, what else am I going to show the people? What else
buy you a drink,
can I write about? Well, and I appreciate it. Whatever it is, it'll probably be on the rocks. But or just take me to the Green Bay Packer game, David. That's hard to get into. So we can talk to that later.
I've been to 103 of them now. We got to go, dude.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, keep your vision going, and threaten to write more and more. I don't intend to stop at I got published, I can go off and become a bowler now. No, I want to continue sharing my vision of the world, the universe, with everyone. Come up with different images that and hopefully
that's
they
what's
get through the Ohio State Green Bay border there, and they get published again.
That's what's important, though, about getting published in a magazine like Astronomy, because it gives you the energy to want to go out and share the knowledge, share your passion, share the experience more, because it's not unobtainable, okay, to do this. You do have to be good, okay? And you are competing against literally some of the world's best astrophotographers, because it's the place. Well, one of the listeners here, one of the viewers, said that the magazine used to be called Astronomy, the most beautiful magazine on astronomy, right?
It was called, we went, being arm twisted by the marketing people to say it's the world's best selling astronomy magazine, which it is. But for many years, Steve Walther, who founded the magazine,
Yeah.
he originated the slogan was the world's most beautiful astronomy magazine. That was the original slogan for many years, even after I started there. So
Mhm.
that went on and on and on. And I think adding to what Adrian said, Adrian's passion comes through for what he's
Absolutely.
doing in the story that he's written. And he has a coherent, really wonderful theme. His images may not be limited to this, but they're nightscape images that show beautiful vistas of foregrounds of he's shooting them in Michigan primarily. So, they're beautiful lake foregrounds, they're lighthouses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, with great vistas and showing that you can get a dark sky where you are there. You don't have to be in the Atacama, so that packaging, is very appealing to others who would love to know how you do this stuff, Adrian, and what
Yeah.
excites you about it. And that's really what it's all about when it comes to one of those stories. And
Yeah.
so, that's kind of different than what I'm saying. My frustration is that most imagers who are shooting prime focus stuff will shoot, here's another Orion Nebula shot, and it's 5% better than the one I sent you 6 months ago. And it's the 3,755th Orion Nebula that has
That
come
you've
into my
seen.
inbox in
Right.
the last 2 years, and that's,
And
my other point is that there are, and this is what I'm trying to do, Scott, with talking about these objects, there
yeah,
are thousands of interesting objects out there,
Yeah,
not
within
the
the reach
same
of amateur
150
telescopes.
objects over and over and over.
and
And
see,
Adrian gets this, but he's not shooting prime focus Orion nebulas, but he's shooting interesting stuff that no one else is really doing in the way that you're doing it, where you're doing it. And that makes it
yeah,
really interesting to the readers.
Yep.
anything different always comes. Sometimes it comes off as, well, we don't understand it, or it's not the norm. A lot of folks will follow the norm. They'll want images to look a certain way in order to be considered good. And in some cases, not necessarily. Again, that's where you have to have your own vision. And, what you say is very important. Now, editor in chief, your idea is, I'll look at the same image 5 million times, but that one image of something a little bit different is going to catch your interest. You've been at
Exactly.
this for a lot of years. And I think, as more of the, any of the magazines, your competitor, whom we shall not name, S&T, but and I know there's a couple others, but
We actually hug the S&T editors at NEAF, by the way. It's okay.
Oh,
okay,
You
yeah.
can
so it's
Yeah,
mention
they
it.
okay to
Yeah,
flirt
yeah,
say
with
yeah.
the
us.
S&T editor.
Especially
And
Diana, but even Peter,
Yeah,
we
and
gave
if
him a big
Diana,
hug.
if
even
you're
Peter.
watching that, we're talking
Yeah.
Yep,
about you.
we're
Yeah.
talking about you. And I'll bet you even Sky and Telescope's like, okay, with the technology you talked about, David, there's so many people that are getting their own versions of the image, and there's nothing wrong with that. You
Mhm.
get your own version of the
No, you're
image, and it
learning.
looks a lot like an image that you may have seen published. That's like, that's great. Where are we going with our images is one thing, and who are you sending your images to? David, you've always supported a lot of the slightly different from every image. The eclipse image, for instance, behind me
Mhm.
is, that's the time where you probably don't really want to be looking at the eclipse. A lot of people got the corona this year, and they did a really great job with the
Yeah.
tech that they did. For me, I had taken a couple of different shots. Everything else was very similar, but that was one of them.
Mhm.
And a wider field view. A lot of the wide field view images of the eclipses, as nice as they may look, they kind of look like broad daylight to me.
Mm.
And one of the things I wanted to do, and it was to share that, let's see if I can capture what it's really like to be there, including the darkness that's there and that color that you get as the eclipse is almost done, or almost starting. Those two, you get those two bookends where you get that weird
Mhm.
color. I
Mhm.
wanted to capture that. It's like, I want people to look at the image and, really feel like they're there. I don't really, a beautiful fantasy image that could come from some planet we haven't inhabited or terraformed yet. those are nice, and it's great for your Instagram feeds, and look at me, I'm a great photographer. Um, I try not to look at my photography in terms of look at me, I'm a great photographer. I instead would want you to look at the photography and say, I want to visit that place, or
Mm.
I didn't know this was in Michigan. And there are some Michigan imagers that attempt that do the same thing. There's some that work on the west side of the state, and they do some work there. So it's not just me. There's a
So
group of
Adrian,
us.
let me say a couple of things here. Okay,
Yeah.
there's some comments coming over, and then we're just going to give you the stage because we're running into your time right now.
Yeah. Oh,
But
okay.
Andrew Corkill
Fine.
is watching. Actually, a number of people are watching, and I'll touch base on most of you here. But Adrian, he says this, and this is true. Okay, and all of us have noticed this. He says Adrian has evolved over the years on Global Star Party and is committed, and commitment is really important. Okay. Mike Wiesner says, image what you love. I developed a love of asteroids while in college in the 1960s. He says, today I image asteroids named for people that I know and places I've been. The challenge is that most of those are faint. So,
And there are very, very few amateurs who are imaging asteroids. That's a really valuable thing for Mike to be doing.
yeah, that's
Right.
right. That's right. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Eicher, and we'll see you next time. And
Thank
we're
you
going to give this to
very much,
Adrian.
Mr. Eicher, and
Thank
you'll
you.
be getting some more articles from me. We're gonna come up with some things here over the next couple
Just don't
months.
make the images 5% better than they were last time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I
it's the
love it.
same place. No, yeah, we're
And
gonna work on that.
and although you say maybe you don't aspire to be a great imager, you are a great imager.
Yeah,
So
you
Well, I
are.
appreciate
congratulations.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
right.
I appreciate it. I do own that, and I say, okay, great imager. Now go get something else. Go share with the world what your passion is.
That's right.
Good stuff.
We don't look at it like but no, it's what got me there. Well, a lot of passion for what I do, and in some ways kind of ignoring the status quo of widescape. Those are landscapes, more photography stuff. No, there's something that I saw, and that I'm sharing with everyone else, and I appreciate you, David and Scott,
Hmm.
and
It's been
David
fun.
is gone, Don. It's good to get this out, and like they said, grow. Well, it helps to get the practice to be able to explain, well, here's what I'm doing and why. So,
Yeah.
well, really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Keep on rocking, man. You're doing the right
Oh, I
thing.
will. Absolutely. And I will keep wearing this Wolverine stuff wherever
That's
this is.
okay. That's all right.
If I graduated in 97 from U of M, and I wish I had used astronomy. I was an engineer, but I wish astronomy was the topic. Maybe there's not too late to go back. Maybe I will.
It's never too late.
So we'll
Never too
see.
late. Yep.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Thanks,
So let's
guys.
give you the stage. And
all right. And I'll go ahead and share my screen. Suppose I could just share. So this is the teaser. I think what I'll do is I'll let people read the article. If you have Astronomy Magazine, chasing nightscapes. And so that was the theme that I wanted to use, chasing nightscapes, because that's exactly it. And this picture, I'll go ahead and we'll go with 2 pages, but that's it. This picture is very important. I may have this picture. Let's see. I can't get to. Yeah, here we go. So here, let's see if I can get to that picture and talk about it. So I keep a gallery of everything that I take pictures of, good, bad, or indifferent. And a lot of you have seen these images on Global Star Party. And I'll stop at these 3 to illustrate kind of a point that I was making, talking with David Eicher and Scott. when you take images like this, where you barely see a Milky Way, you see Orion, you see the rocks here, you try and get detail. All images are always transition images to your next one. The goal here was, I was out here, it was hazy. This represents exactly what I saw, which was, I saw Orion. It was dark enough over the lake. This is this is not quite Lake Huron, it's Saginaw Bay, but leads out to Lake Huron in Michigan. So this is an example of an image where I simply wanted to share with you all what I saw looking up. And the camera gets a little more info. You know, here's M44 over here. And then this one, another hazy night, I went out. You know, this view will look familiar to you if you look at the magazine and the images that were chosen. It's the same view, but on a much clearer night. Somewhere in here where there's a plane, you may not look at this and say, well, this isn't, you know, is this a great image? Some part of my passion goes for enjoying the night sky itself. Great image isn't always the goal. Sometimes I'm here to document what can I get with my camera, and might I be able to use that later. Now there's a comment in there somewhere, and I think I tried to blow that up. And then this image doesn't look like much at all. It was super cloudy, and I'm standing right at the base of this light tower, and there's the moon. And I got the moon with some detail in it. And if you look at this image, there's some mistakes here where I tried to layer in the light tower and the branches over here. But the goal was, can I shoot what I can see even in bad conditions, you know, where the moon is just barely shining through the barely shining through the sky, and it's sitting next to the tower. Can I take you to that weird night where I decided to drive a couple hours, look up at the tower? Oh, there's the moon. Images like these are what allow your imagination to catch up with what you can photograph. And I would dare anybody to try this on a cloudy night where the moon is peeking through. See if you can get an image like this where you've got an object that you're near, you've got an object like the moon, and make it look the way it would look to your eyes. Those are the sort of things that drive me. We can take pictures of the moon. Now, can we take pictures of the moon standing still, no tripod, snapping the photo? If I look at image, or if I look at detail here, I can see, yeah, this was me holding the camera and taking a shot at the moon when it was 99%, because you see the craters down here. So this was likely a waning crescent. And can you get enough sharpness to the point where you can see this formation, you can see some of the other formations in the mare here. So it's you challenge yourself when you image. A lot of us have our processes down that do our imaging, and we like our processes, we use them, but how can we stretch what it is that we're doing? And so when I chasing nightscapes, yeah, let's look at that one more time, because this is a nondescript image, but you've got Taurus, the head of Orion here. You've got a planet. Now, I believe this was Mars at the time when I took this, and you had this halo going around the moon, but you also had the glow of the moon. And so one thing I've been continuously working on, and this is Gemini over here, I believe. One thing I've been continuously working on is you've got stars and you've got the moon, shooting those together. Most nightscapers wait on, your Milky Way photography like this. And even at a location like this, where there's a lot of light pollution, when I first started doing this, I was taught how to get rid of the light pollution. And I decided, well, no, this stuff is really here. So I keep it there. I want it to be a part of it. If you read the magazine, you'll see this. And you'll see that there's a mistake. So there's always room for improvement, even in images that, that make magazines. You can look at them and say, can I make these trees a little more stationary? Can I make that lighthouse a little less blurry? And then let's see, this one of these images, I'll click on this image, even though there may be someone watching along who left a comment about this image that it was rather plain and
I think the
composition
colors
lacking.
and the
Yeah,
symmetry of it is amazing.
right. And there
I don't see
was
it
a
as plain, I see it as peaceful.
yeah, or composition is lacking was the comment that came
Entirely true.
about this. And
Right.
those sort of comments come out, those you'd never let things like that stop you because there's a purpose. If as long as there's a purpose behind what you're shooting and that purpose leads to, in every image you take leads to a different image later on. You go to that locale again, this I think these were more images, so I was still there, and it was getting darker, and so trying different things, nothing wrong with it. And so what I'll do is I'll see, we'll come back. So we came back to the lighthouse and look at these images now. We knew the area. We said, hey, we were over here. What would it be like to be on the beach? And that's where we found rising Milky Way. And you take a number of different shots in different locations and you try different things. Like this is a mosaic of an 85 millimeter lens, about 30 seconds each, with each of these shots had these settings right here, f2.8, 30 seconds, and I took about 9 or 10 of them. So your detail in the Milky Way, if that ever pops in, and it just might not quite, but yeah, your detail becomes good here. So what's my next step? Get a good lighthouse. That's a little, you may not see it on your screen, but it is a little out of focus. So there's always something to try. And the one thing about nightscape photography, you get to try again. A lot of times, if you're just aiming at a particular object, Roro Fuyuki, for instance, a lot of you great images out there do Roro Fuyuki. That's your target. You got to put the hours in, you got to put the time, because in order to get the detail that you're looking for, you need to image for enough time. A lot of images that I began you doing 4-minute images. Real quick, I'll talk about this. Why is this so faint? There was a really bad time period where there was smoke in 2023 in the areas, and it didn't stop me from shooting. So, if I can tell you anything, don't let locale stop you from doing what you can. And then when you do get out to your dark skies, you can compare the same imaging techniques, the same time spent, the same, your same process, and then you see the difference in how many stars you have. Sometimes you leave them in, sometimes you overdo you look and you say, I kind of overdid my sharpening process. So we'll tone that down. And then you look and you say, sometimes you have an opportunity to try and catch things that you normally don't see in the sky. Sky's great. Oh, but there's all sorts of things here. It's always a challenge to, you do your best to smooth things out. You want to, and in the end, you just want to capture what you see, and not everything has to be perfect. Even I worked long to try and get a accurate rising moon off of the lake shot, and this is as close as I've gotten. So there's always more to shoot for. Your imagination is important. Even if you go to a locale and you got nothing but an iPhone, use your iPhone. Just do what you can, because you never know. And then I'll close on some of these eclipse images. This was from northern Michigan. This was a learning exercise, because this showed me that I didn't need, if there were enough clouds in the sky, you could still see the sun and you could still see the part of the eclipse. So when the forecast for the total solar eclipse was high clouds, I still felt confident enough that I could get some kind of image, and that I could get some kind of a wide field image. There's the barely eclipsed sun. I think it'll come through there. You see the barely eclipsed sun. And if you move back, there's a bunch of clouds here, and you've got clouds, sun's peeking through. These are sort of images that's, you're not just trying to get the fantastic image for the fantastic likes and things. You're trying to share with people, this is what it looked like when I went and stood in the middle of the road, no one coming. You take some chances when you take images like this. And so when you go out to Perrysburg, Ohio, and your eclipse pictures may not be as great as a lot of other people. You got some of the prominences in the detail, but at least this wasn't your end goal. Was this was in Michigan, this was in Ohio with
Yeah.
Bailey's beads. So which one would you have rather seen? Most of you
Yeah.
out there, you would have rather seen this. And this leads to why I did this composite, because a lot of images, when you try and do a wide field image, you end up with a bright as daylight land. But I wanted it to, this is what my eyes saw. This is the color that was there. This is what it looked like being on the Maumee River. And I know a few of you may have a similar composed shot, but everything here, it's like, this takes me back. When I look at it, it takes me back to that moment that I looked up and said, I better take a picture. And taking the pictures of the eclipse and bringing them down to a proper size. Not, you talk about your AI. Well, the first thing, if I wanted to do an AI type picture, I'd have this eclipse larger than life. And a lot of folks may love, this picture would be in there, and it's great, but you go for realism. That's why on this one it was a slight miss, because this was a little larger,
That's cool.
but it
I do
is,
like this.
yeah. And we darken the photo. Um, this represents, this is a stepping stone image, because while it is a very realistic view of what it's like to look up at the sun during totality, I'm going to share a little secret with you. That's a little big, and I'll show you why. Because later, there's the moon. That's the same size lens that I took that other picture, but that's the size of the moon. And if you can see, it's, you extrapolate this. So if we go to full and you extrapolate this, it's not very big at all. So truthfully, it could have been a little bit smaller. To be the actual size in a 16 millimeter photo, the actual size of the sun and or moon, because they're the same size, is smaller. So a lot of the images get the size right, but not the color of the sky. I mean, it's totality, and you're looking up at it. That was the goal behind that. And getting a chance to see totality again, it's going to be, there's going to be a little bit more. It'll be a full circle. It's not going to be very much, but then the surrounding area, is what I would be looking for. And, this goes to the point of, why I do this. There isn't much in the sky. The moon is here. It's bright. You see planes everywhere. But sometimes you get lucky. So you have the moon.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a plane, but look where it points. Pleiades. So if you're looking for objects in the
Pointer.
sky, It's pointing right to the
That's cool.
Pleiades here, and then this little streamer's pointing right at Orion.
That's a great
So
image.
you've got, you know,
This
sometimes
is
you
a
get
good
lucky.
image to close on,
Yes,
Adrian. That's great.
absolutely. And
I do
so,
I do want to one of our John Ray, who was watching earlier, wanted to point out that you should any of your published work should come with a recommendation of stimulate your rods and cones. He says your work's always beautiful, so
well, I
that's great.
appreciate that. And I'll definitely keep that in mind as I wipe off whatever. I should probably go eat something after this, but and I'll be heading to a star party here soon.
Okay,
After I'm gonna listen to Don Nab, because Don, I plan to come to the astronomical ALCon Astronomical League. I've paid for my
it'll be your
tickets.
first one.
It'll
Yeah,
be my
that's great.
first one, so I'm
Right,
looking
I'll be
forward to
there.
seeing all of you there
Yep.
at ALCon. I'm gonna drive up, and I'm gonna find a place to stay. If I can't stay the whole time, I'm definitely coming Wednesday to see David's talk, David Levy,
Yeah.
and get to see my good friend in person after so many years. So
That's great.
so Don,
Okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing you maybe in focus, but
Yeah.
looking forward.
Sure.
I know
Well,
you're
Just
no.
get
looking, you're
blurry.
working on that,
Yeah, I'm not
but
sure why.
yeah,
All right.
well,
Guys,
and
now, Don, before you start your talk, I have a very, very short video, which I think you might appreciate. Okay. Adrian, thank you. Thanks again. And
no, thank
until
you.
next time. Okay.
All right.
Congratulations once again on your
Thank you.
great work.
And
Okay.
hopefully there'll be many more. You know, I got to go out and get to work on that somehow
You got a
while
lot of work to do now. You
working
got
my
to top
full-time
what you
job.
did. That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
we'll work on that.
Okay, all right. Okay, so Don, let me take over here a little bit. I think that this is kind of cool, and I found this, and I don't know, being that you are an enthusiast of George Ellery Hale and Palomar, and this whole era, that was the moonshot for us at that time, and
Yep.
this is a historical newsreel, just a piece of it. Okay, here we go.
The Mount Palomar Observatory on top of a towering California peak above mist and fog, high up where the air is the clearest for stargazing. The $10 million apparatus built by the Rockefeller Foundation for the California Institute of Technology. There, the supergiant telescope with the 200-inch mirror to magnify heavenly objects 1,000,000 times, 8 times greater than any other telescope. The moon brought to within 20 miles of the Earth. The secrets of the canals of Mars to be revealed. Maybe even the secret of life. They call it the eye of the world. But wait just a minute, I forgot. It's only a model.
I forgot, it's only a model. Now, this obviously was done before the 200-inch was finished. But I loved the way that the people were moving around, and
That was great.
they had like a little highway which does not exist, where it shows cars
Mhm.
buzzing
Mhm.
back and forth and stuff like that. But anyways, I know that the last time you were on, you gave a wonderful talk about Palomar and the observatory, and so you're going to come back with part 2. So thank you.
Okay, I will share my screen. So I got this one coming through.
Yes.
Slideshow from beginning. All right.
You
Greetings,
need to put it in
greetings.
presentation mode. There you go.
All right.
Perfect.
Greetings, fellow stargazers. So this is part 2. This is sort of the modern day Hale 200-inch. Back in February, I did the history. So this was just a quick review. This was the most important telescope in the world from 1949 until 1992. Before I get into that, I just do want to mention, as Adrian mentioned, AlcCon is coming up in Kansas City. July 17th to 20, and reservations are open. You can sign up at any time. And I'm going to do one brief plug here for one of my favorite events, probably my favorite astronomical event, and that's Green Bank StarQuest,
Oh, yeah.
coming up in July. And it's a wonderful conference. It is, if you dropped a line straight south of Pittsburgh and west from Washington, D.C., that's about where they meet, is pretty close to where Green Bank is. It's not the middle of nowhere, but you can see it from there. So it's a radio quiet zone because it is a radio telescope active observing site. I think during the week they're on maintenance mode. But it's wonderful little camp in sight of this, the Robert C. Byrd radio telescope. This is the largest fully steerable radio telescope in the world, and it is, doing active research all the time. The great place to camp. There's plenty of room, and if you don't like to camp, there is a bunkhouse and the science center where all the presentations are done. And I'll be giving a presentation this year and having a meeting for the Mideast region of the Astronomical League. So, all right, so Palomar Observatory. This is one of the most magnificent structures in all of astronomy. And just a real brief look here. Here's a couple deep sky images, pretty common things, but things that are beautiful. And these were not taken from Palomar. These were taken by this guy, dear friend of mine, Brent Crabb. He and his wife, Mary, the tall one, my wife, Barb, the shorter one. Brent and Mary live close enough to Disneyland that you can hear the fireworks at night. So a lot of challenges with light pollution, they still get some amazing astrophotography photos. This is our little group. We were waiting for the tour. Brent drove us down from just to the Anaheim, Fountain Valley area. It's about a 2-hour drive. And the drive itself is entertaining. When you're starting to go up the mountain, you're getting higher and higher. Obviously, Mount Palomar is a mountain, and it is a pretty high one. Every turn you take gives you another vista. It starts getting a little bit dizzy at times. I think when we were going up, there was a group of motorcycles doing, like, I don't even call it a race, but they were flying up the mountain. It's twisty and curvy. It reminds you of Kitt Peak in Arizona. And then you come around a corner and you find this beautiful, stately, amazing dome. And it's hard to imagine the scale of it from this photo. Here's an aerial view of the campus. Now, the visitor center is to the lower left. And there's a couple of scopes here, the main one being the 200-inch Hale telescope. Up in the upper left here, this is something left over from the construction. And I want to point out one thing down here. If you can see this spot, we're going to zoom in on that. And that's this spot here. That is a concrete mirror blank. When they built this telescope, of course, as you saw the part one, it took 2 tries to get the mirror produced. So they didn't want to put this mirror up to balance the scope. You have to, just like any other equatorial telescope, you have to balance this thing precisely. So they didn't want to risk the main glass mirror. They used this concrete blank. As you're waiting for your tour, you sign up for a tour, you can walk around the visitor center, and then you go over to the telescope, and you got to find something to pass the time. And, it's warm sun, you get a little tired, you hang around here, and it's also a great place to rest while you're waiting for the tour to start. So that's my wife, Barb. Catch a little nap waiting for the tour to start, okay? So, the upper dome itself, it's 1,000 tons. Now, how do you get that in perspective? And I was thinking, that's about 400 cars, okay? The dome was 400 cars worth, rotating on wheels. The doors themselves, each one is 125 tons.
Wow.
And between the outer steel wall and the inner is 4 feet to try to maintain cool temperatures, the nighttime temperatures, so it doesn't warm up too much during that. And that's why this thing is white, to keep the sun from heating up the scope during the day. But yeah, it is just a massive thing. You can see my wife, she's just probably be in awe of this magnificent structure. It is an amazing thing to see in person. So here's another telescope model, not as big as the one you had in your video, Scott, but this is an equatorial mount. And any of us who are photographers or amateur astronomers recognize, this is the polar axis. And this is the yoke that the whole telescope rotates on. And the telescope itself, this is when it spins left and right here. That's the declination axis. So you really have to get your head around that this is a horseshoe structure, gives access to the entire sky. I've been contemplating, I looked and I couldn't find, but some thoughts, why was this scope built like this? Modern day scopes like the Keck, the Subaru, they're all azimuth mounts. Much simpler way to construct. And I think the reason for it, and someone can certainly chime in, the reason is that when you have a modern scope doing everything electronically, you can compensate for field rotation. But if you're using film, you cannot compensate for field rotation. So this telescope had to be an equatorial mount. Here's another model. I went to visit the founder of my local astronomy club. He's 95. He has this model that his father built. So that had to be built in the
Wow,
40s or 50s.
that's
Built
cool.
this from a kit. When I was a kid, I was building like redstone rockets.
Mhm.
But this is the kind of kit they sold then. And this train is the same scale as the telescope. So this just gives you an idea of the scale of this machine, the magnificent machine that Mr. Hale built. Just amazing scale. So these are photos now from when my friend Brent Crabb, his wife Mary and Barb, and I went on a tour. And a lot of people call this dome and the telescope the Cathedral of Astronomy. I think is a good description for it.
Yeah.
So who better than to image first light or even see first light than Edwin Hubble through the Hale telescope? He did that in 49. And this made continuous significant contributions. Quasars were first identified, spectrum from the Hale telescope. Halley's Comet, I bought my first telescope to see Halley's Comet. It was actually detected in 1982, even though it didn't come back visible to 86. And that was done by the Hale telescope. And not just looking back, decades, just this last December, the Hale telescope is the receiving antenna for the Deep Space Communications Experiment on the Psyche mission. Psyche is visiting a metal-rich asteroid. And it's actually a space laser system that'll have performance improvements 10 to 100 times over radio. So even within a few months ago, the Hale telescope is still actively working and doing modern day, very important science. So here's the telescope when it's parked aiming straight up. That is, of course, the two dome doors there you can see. The mirror is at the bottom, and the mirror can be lowered for maintenance, and that's done every 2 years. They strip the aluminum coating off it because, as any of us know who have a reflecting telescope mirror, over time they do degrade. And they have a vacuum chamber, and they put a thin coating of aluminum on in the chamber. Every 2 years they do that. So this was during our tour. That's the docent giving us a tour. And just to stand under this thing, the scale, the scope of this, the massive yoke that this whole thing rotates so the telescope can see any part of the sky. And then this is the outside of the bearing, the two bearings that support the telescope itself. It's just a massive, massive device. Later in the tour, you get to go up on the steps, I'll go all the way around the top of the bottom of the dome. So this is a view from the top of the dome. And this is the prime focus cage. This is where people would ride out the entire night, changing plates and films and keeping track of the focus and the alignment. They would spend entire nights in that little prime focus cage. And then the final part of the tour is you get to walk around the outside. And again, the view from outside is stunning. I'm not sure which telescope that is. There are two other telescopes working. Of course, David Levy could probably tell us because the 18-inch Schmidt is somewhere in this campus.
Yes, I think that is the 18-inch Schmidt.
That's the 18-inch, okay.
Yeah.
And there's a close above it with my camera.
Yeah.
And one thing you don't want to do when you're taking this tour is, if you're scared of heights, you don't want to look down because it is an open grate walkway. So you're way up there. So So that was our tour. It was a few years ago now, but as George Ellery Hale said, make no small plans and dream no small dreams.
Yes, wonderful. That's great.
And you
You
should,
know, George Ellery Hale's grandson, Sam Hale, is of course still with us, and he is director of the Mount Wilson Observatory up there, and he is also, certainly one of the leaders of the Alliance of Historic Observatories, of which Palomar Observatory is one of these members. Mount
Mhm.
Wilson, Lick, Lowell, Yerkes,
Yerkes,
several
yeah.
of these observatories, and they are starting to form an alliance organization to support each other.
Mhm.
Because a lot of these historic observatories have faced problems with either being potentially shut down. Mount Wilson has faced that a couple of times. Yerkes actually did get shut down by the University of Chicago. They stepped out, and but a nonprofit came in their place and saved the observatory, and they're still in the process of restoring it, which is wonderful. I'm glad that a genuine Hale, is involved in all of this, and
Mhm.
it's a
Mhm.
lot of fun to talk to these guys, because the passion and the thrill is still there, and that statement about make no small plans is something that Sam Hale uses a lot. So
Wow.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
Anyone's in ever possible to visit Palomar, put it on your list. And our
Yep,
next target is going to be Mount Wilson next time we visit our friends in California.
very good.
We've been to the Griffith, so now we want to get to Mount Wilson.
That's great. Well, Don, I also want to thank you for all the great work that you do for the Astronomical League. You've been with them for how many years now?
Well, our club has been active. I've been part of the club since 2006, but I've only been working, I've been Merrill Chair since 2019, since the Mideast Region Chair 2019.
Wow.
Since StarQuest at 2019, that's when I was first introduced to it. John, the fellow that was doing the Mideast Region Chair, is having some health issues, and I had a conversation with John Goss in the camping field, and I thought, you know what, I guess I can step in and help out here. So I've been doing that now for 5 years. That's scary.
That's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. And it was good to see you too at Northeast Astronomy Forum. And I assume that you'll be at Alcon as well in Kansas City.
Yep, got to get plans made. Yep.
Yep. Okay. And you
Yeah,
too,
well,
watching out there, should
yep.
definitely go.
Well, before I go, I want to mention I do hope to get out to Neath one of these days and see everybody in person,
It was
all the
great.
astrophotographers, and
It was
learn.
great. Yeah.
There's even more to learn, and who says that I might not try and dabble in some of the,
They have an
deep focus, deep
astrophotography
sky.
conference,
Yeah,
Adrian.
it's a
You
short
should,
8-hour drive, so
yeah,
I just
you should
gotta.
present
But
there.
sometimes the day job gets in the way. I recently changed positions at my day job, so it's less stressful. But we're always busy, near my phone a lot. But
Yep,
but I will be looking forward to seeing everybody in Kansas City. So
that's great.
that'll be a fun trip.
All right. All right.
Yep.
All right.
So there's
Thank you so
a
much.
star party, the University Lowbrows. I can never find my logos. The University Lowbrows, who come from or based out of the University of Michigan, are doing a member night tonight. And if you're in Michigan watching this and you want to come out, of course, you have to be a member of the Lowbrows, the actual open house star parties. I have two clubs that I represent: the Warren Astronomical Society and then the University Lowbrow Astronomers. And there were a lot of mentors there on the imaging. All Astronomical League members. Don, I'm the chair for the Warren Astronomical Society, so it's getting high time to see who's going to join the Astronomical League and who wants to re-up their membership. Of course, I do. So I'll be sending that in to you all pretty soon. For the lowbrows, we have someone. I'll throw his name out there. Doug Scoble is our Astronomical League member for the
There you go.
lowbrows.
There you go.
We have a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada that joined the Lowbrows because he wanted to be an Astronomical League member. So I'll actually throw a question out there for you. If you are from Canada and are interested in joining the Astronomical League, can you still do so as an at-large member from Canada, or do you
Sure.
have to join a membership group from the United States?
I think you can do from anywhere in the world. You could be an
You
at-large
can.
member.
You
Okay,
can.
which
Yeah,
is
membership at large
awesome.
is a worldwide thing, but you could join a club that is an astronomical league
And
uh,
now, aren't there
member club.
discounts for joining a club as far as membership dues go?
Yep,
Okay, so
absolutely.
that may be the reason. If you're in Canada and you're close, you're close to a club in the States, that may be why. That's our own Kareem Jaffer is an Astronomical League member, and he joined through the University Lowbrow Astronomers. So that was, in addition to the Lowbrows getting a great speaker, the Astronomical League got another really good member through through our club. So, but it sounds like you don't have to do that if you're listening around the world and you want to become an Astronomical League member. Of course, I'm kind of plugging it as if, but why not? If you want
Good.
to become an Astronomical League
That's
member,
right.
you've
That's
got
right.
an Astronomical League, couple Astronomical League members right here on your screen. I think
Mhm.
that makes four because David has joined us, and you can ask questions. I think it's al.org. That's the site,
It's
website?
Astro League.
Astro League.
Astroleague.org.
Yeah, I'll put
That's
that
it.
down in the chat
Yeah.
here. So if you guys are
Yeah.
not already members, you do want to get in the cool kids club and
Yes.
with the
Be
Astronomical
be one of the
Leagues.
cool kids. You never know
Yeah,
where it could
that's
take you.
right.
And it'll teach you the night sky. That's something I didn't mention. One of the things that being in a club full of visual astronomers that led to my imaging was, David's picture of the Southern Cross that showed me you can get starlight from a camera. That blew my mind and sent me on this journey. The other thing is, it's nice if you know the night sky. We do have a lot of good astro imagers who know the process, who know the how to do this stuff. There's prizes. I won't say prizes, but I know there's things certifications you can earn in the Astronomical League,
Oh, yeah.
and there's
They have all these observing programs. I think over
yeah,
80 observing programs.
yeah, and I think there's some astrophotography programs now too, if I'm not mistaken. And
Right?
so there's something for everyone in this great hobby passion we call astronomy, and the Astronomical League is one great way to continue challenging yourself. And knowing the night sky to me was very important because there are things that I try and marry the night sky with the ground. So it isn't just throwing a background full of stars. I look at the sky and say, oh, there's a couple things here that I
Mhm.
recognize and put them in. So, and Astronomical League, some of those certifications you can get really do help with that. Or you can sit with all of these gentlemen when they're observing and you can just learn when
Oh, you will.
they put you
You
on the
definitely will.
telescope and you say, what do you see? I see a faint blob. Well, that's 51 million light years away. And if that does something for you, you're in the right place. But if you pull your phone out afterwards and ask to take a picture, well, you're also in the right place, but that's not quite the way to go around about it. And if you pull out your phone and you ruin everyone's night vision, you're in the
You're going to
wrong
hear
place.
about it.
Learn some manners.
You're going to
Turn
hear
those
about
bright lights off.
it. All right.
So all
Okay.
right.
Thanks, Adrian.
I'll let you all take it. I'm gonna go to our member night and
Okay.
get some photons in.
Great.
Try and get them in the eyes.
Have
And
fun.
I'll go from
Take
there.
care. Take care.
Thanks for letting me blab everyone's head off.
Have fun. And thanks for letting us know about it.
I will.
All right. Don, thanks again
Sure. Happy to
for
be here.
joining us. And At this point, I'm going to recognize some of our viewers right now. We have David. We got quite a few people checking in here. We have Ed Gunther, whom you know, and Andrew Corkill, someone I know I worked with at Mead Instruments. There is the Astronomator, the cycling ace, and I just love the name. I think it's fun, and but he's also up there in northern Michigan. Mike Wiesner, great friend of both of ours, David, out there in Oracle, Arizona. Put on the last David Levy Arizona Dark Sky Star Party out there. We have John Ray, who's been commenting quite a bit. We love your comments there, John. It's great. You asked if we would ever do a tour of Palomar Observatory. David, have you ever given a talk at under the dome of the 200-inch?
I've never actually given a lecture under the dome of the 200-inch. I have, however, given a lecture under the dome of the 100-inch, and you were there.
I was there. That's right.
And it was terrible.
No, you were wonderful. You were wonderful. It was.
Thank you.
It was incredible, really. So, John Ray is. We made a Global Star Party hoodie, which I'm going to have to get for one of those for Dr. Levy here to wear. It's the one with Saturn's rings and stuff. I know Jupiter's your favorite planet, but this, yeah, I couldn't resist putting Saturn on it.
I can live with Saturn.
That's right. Who else? David Simard, who's been on in our audience many times. Senthil Nagapan, and his son, who has given many presentations. Adrian Norwick is on. Ray APL. Not sure what APL means, but we're glad that you're here. Who else? We've got Tarek from the UAE watching. You know, so this is truly a globally watched star party. So thanks for tuning in. Dusty Haskins. Dusty actually left me this little note. He was driving through Arkansas and left me a note saying, "Hey, just wanted to let you know that I stopped by to check some stuff out and was passing through, and last minute decided to stop in. Couldn't resist stopping in and at least letting us know." So thank you very much, Dusty. That was wonderful. Who else here? It looks like that's it for right now. David, at this point, I have several videos of that have to do with the incredible energies that are in the cosmos, and also the energy of space exploration a little bit. And there's a part about the sun, and then we kind of ease into aurora. And so I'm going to show you guys a series of these videos. Let me bring you in. And here we go.
Hi, my name is Erin Kara, and I'm an astrophysicist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center and the University of Maryland. I was part of a team who used X-rays to map the environment around a recently discovered black hole, learning new details about how those surroundings evolve as material swirls closer to the black hole. We made the breakthrough using observations from NASA's Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer, or NICER, on the International Space Station. NICER let us watch a flare of light from the area around a black hole called MAXI J1820 plus 070, or J1820 for short. This stellar mass black hole is around 10 times the Sun's mass and funnels gas away from a neighboring star and into a dense ring of material called an accretion disk. Magnetic and gravitational forces compress and heat the gas to millions of degrees, hot enough to glow in X-rays. We think the flare of X-rays Neisser spotted was due to an instability in the disk, which caused a flood of material to move toward the central black hole. Above the black hole is a region of subatomic particles called the corona. The corona is extremely hot, 1 billion degrees, and shines in even higher energy X-rays. Not a lot is known about why the corona is so hot. This outburst provides an opportunity for us to study how both the disk and the corona change as the black hole consumes this material. Waves of X-rays from the corona echo off the accretion disk like the sonar we use to explore the ocean floor. These echoes tell us about the size and shape of the disk and corona. Iron atoms in the disk absorb X-rays from the corona and then re-emit them. Gravitational distortion of space-time stretches the wavelengths of the X-rays, reducing their energy. The farther from the black hole they are, the less the light is affected. As we watched the system over weeks, the light echoes got closer together. This suggested that something in the system was becoming smaller. The low energy emission coming from iron atoms close to the black hole didn't change at all, suggesting that it was not the disk moving in, but rather the corona shrinking. The team and I estimated that the corona contracted from roughly 100 miles to only 10. The discovery reveals that stellar mass black holes behave similarly to their supermassive cousins, which are millions to billions of times the Sun's mass. Those monster objects are found in the hearts of most galaxies, like our Milky Way, but their slower evolution over millions or billions of years is impossible to detect on human timescales. Stellar mass black holes, on the other hand, evolve much more quickly. Thanks to Neisser, scientists like me are observing the evolution of black hole systems and learning more about how our universe works.
In 2011, NASA's SWIFT satellite caught an X-ray outburst from a small galaxy 3.8 billion light-years away. Within a couple of days, researchers realized they were witnessing the aftermath of a tidal disruption event, a star ripped apart by the monster black hole at the galaxy's center. Some of the stellar material fell toward the black hole, forming an accretion disk and a jet pointed in our direction.
Tidal disruption events offer us this rare view at the most common kind of supermassive black hole in the universe, these so-called dormant supermassive black holes. 90% of black holes in the universe don't have a lot of hot material orbiting around them. They don't form these accretion disks, and so we can't observe them. Tidal disruption events, where the stellar debris causes the formation of a temporary accretion disk, offers us a way to probe this population of supermassive black holes.
SWIFT monitored the outburst's progress and was joined by the European Space Agency's XMM Newton Observatory and the Japanese Suzaku satellite. Recently, astronomers introduced a new analysis technique that for the first time allows them to peer deep into the gravitational well of a normally quiescent black hole. Called X-ray reverberation mapping, the method charts the region close to the black hole using light echoes from X-ray flashes, similar to the way sonar uses sound to map the ocean floor.
X-ray reverberation mapping has been very successful at probing the accretion flow in well-established accretion disk structures, but had never been used to look at tidal disruption events. My collaborator at the University of Maryland and I were having lunch one day, and she says, has anyone ever looked at tidal disruption events with X-ray reverberation mapping? That night, I stayed late at the office and just tried it out on this data from Swift J1644, and much to my surprise, the result was amazing, and I could see that we were looking at the structure of the inner accretion flow around a normally dormant black hole for the first time. It's not like a normal accretion flow in an active galaxy that's a flat disk. This is something that is extremely puffy, very turbulent, and we are measuring flashes of X-ray emission deep within this newly formed accretion disk.
Stellar material streamed into the developing disk, churning it into a thick, chaotic whirlpool of X-ray emitting gas, funneling toward the central black hole. Deep inside this cavity, multiple X-ray flares erupted, providing a flash that echoed throughout the region.
Previously, astronomers had thought that the X-ray emission is coming from far out in a jet. But what we're finding with these observations is that the X-ray emission is coming from flares very close to the supermassive black hole. And we can use these observations to probe properties of the black hole itself. For instance, we found that the mass of the black hole is something on the order of 1,000,000 times the mass of the Sun.
The first observations of X-ray reverberations from deep inside an accretion disk are providing new insights into a rarely observed class of black holes. They're also laying the groundwork for a better understanding of tidal disruption events and the black holes they illuminate.
Well, that was a pretty interesting set of videos from NASA about black holes. And it's great to, just to learn more about what we're finding out about these things that, not too long ago, these things were just, they were almost the things of science fiction. So, today we have actual images of black holes, and I can only imagine what we would expect to see in data collection and more research into black holes in the next 5 to 10 years. Up next is Carrie Letelier, and Carrie has been on adventure after adventure, making some of the best astrophotographs or night sky photographs. They're both one and the same to me, but she provides some really, really stunning work. And I think she's been concentrating recently on aurora, which we all love. So Carrie, thank you for coming on. I think you're muted at this moment here. So there we go.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for
Hi.
inviting me.
It's great to have you back. We've missed you. I've missed you. And I've been watching you through your website and your Facebook posts and all the rest of it. So, but thanks for taking some time out with us tonight here on Global Star Party.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. And yeah, I've been running a lot. Since I fell in love with auroras, it has been like more complicated to have more time. As I have to travel, I can see them in here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's something we will talk about now, and I would like you to be part of the discussion that I want to present about auroras.
Okay.
So for that, I will use something here. Let me just share it to you. Yeah, as you were telling, I'm now back here in Chile, but I'm now going to, I don't know if you can see the screen.
It's coming. Give it a moment. Oh, that's nice. Wow, that is beautiful. Now that's real? I mean, that's...
Yeah, it is a huge panorama of a geomagnetic storm level G3 with KP7 over Goðafoss, the waterfall of the gods in the north part of Iceland. So, wow, auroras is something that we all dream about to catch it, right? We all want we all have in our bucket list to watch auroras sometime in life.
Yes.
So I think it's kind of similar of what we do here, at least here in Chile, in astrophotography, looking for the best dark and night skies ever. Well, it's something similar with auroras because you definitely need to go hunt them. You need to go find it. It's not that easy to watch them, and it's not that easy to catch them and to make photos of them. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about of how auroras are formed. Let me just continue here. And to propose you a discussion about auroras as a scam. There's a lot of people that suggest that auroras are a scam because they can see the colors as the color appears in the photos or in the videos, right? So what do you believe? Do you think it is a scam or not? I don't know about you, Scott. Have you been watching auroras in the past?
The best view I've had of aurora was actually flying over Greenland. And we could see it, we're at 30,000 feet or whatever, and we could see them down below us. And, I'm like screaming. I'm like going, this is amazing. And I was telling people on the aircraft that are with me, they're all like sleeping or reading a magazine or watching a movie, to look at this amazing auroral display. Okay. And for some reason, I guess maybe a weird gas was in the airplane that made everybody have the, kind of the harumps, but they were not excited about seeing this, and it was right out their window. I mean, people pay big money to go see aurora, and they travel around the world like you did to go see these things. And so yeah, that was my best view ever of an aurora. But I have seen them from Canada, and I've actually seen them from the United States. So not as amazing as what you're seeing here, but still, it's fun.
Actually, for people traveling to Iceland or maybe to Scandinavia, like no part of Sweden, Finland, or Norway, uh, what I try to tell my travelers when they are booking their flights is try to travel from North America, crossing, for example, from New York, Toronto, or Boston, because from there you will have the chance to see the auroras over Greenland. When you're passing over Greenland in the flight, you can see the auroras in there. And actually, it seems like you are over them, but you're not, because the auroras is acting like very, very high in the sky. Actually, the lower one, that is the pink one, is at maybe 80 kilometers. I know you think in miles. It's difficult for me to think in
That's
miles, but
okay. That's all
it's
right.
like 80 kilometers over the surface. So it is because you're watching the aurora maybe more far from where you are. Actually, you can see the aurora as far as maybe 1,000 kilometers from the place you are, depending on the geomagnetic level that you're having right there. For example, in here, oh, my internet is having a bit of lag, but for example, in the aurora that I have in the middle of the screen,
Yeah.
if I didn't have the lag, well, the video will show, yeah, it is a video in real time, and it was a KP6. We were able to have the red aurora, that is the one that is
Wow.
like higher in the sky. It's like at 200, 250 kilometers over the surface. And
Now,
it's
could you
more
see this
difficult.
visually? Could you see it visually, this red color, or
Yeah, you
with your own
can.
eyes? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it will always depend on how strong is the aurora that you're watching. Actually,
Yeah.
I don't know if you knew it, but there was a time where we were able to watch auroras from Chile. We are here in latitude 33 degrees south. And people in Colombia were able to watch the aurora in latitude 3 degrees north
That's
in
cool.
Bogota. That's
Yeah.
insane,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
if that happens nowadays, it will be so crazy and it will be such a chaos and disaster. because of all the internet and all the satellites, they will all start failing because of this huge amount of energy acting. But we will be having auroras. And this happened in 1859
Look
during
at
the
this.
Carrington event.
Oh yeah, the Carrington event. That's right.
Exactly. And scientists are afraid that maybe this year we will have that because the sun is acting, the behavior of the sun, it's been like so strong but weird. For example, this year, it has been like everywhere that this will be the best year to watch the Northern Lights, right? So there was a lot of people traveling to Iceland or to North Sweden or to the Sweden, Laponia, or Finland, Laponia, looking on trying to chase the Northern Lights. And many people very frustrated because they spend like many days staying in those parts of the world waiting for the Northern Lights. And the thing is that this season was not as strong as the last one. The last one was stronger, but much stronger than this season that just ended. And it's because we can maybe predict what is going to happen with the sun, but it's just a prediction. It's just that it's not something like certain. So it's exactly the same for now with this year. Maybe this next season that will start for the Northern Hemisphere, it will start during September. Maybe we can try to forecast, hey, we will have a lot of auroras, very strong auroras, but it's just probability. It's not something certain. So maybe that can be not this end of the year and can be next year or at the end of the next year. The thing is that what we will have from now till 2027 is auroras, because when the sun is not active at all, we have the chance to have no auroras like in many nights in a row. But what we're saying now is that before, during the maximum of the solar cycle, and after this maximum solar cycle, we will have the chance to have auroras because of the activity that we're having from the sun. I really like to show about, give me 1 second, to show about the sun and the layers that the sun have and how these auroras are formed. That we know that is the interaction of the solar wind, and the solar wind is formed in the crown, right, in the one of the outer layers of the sun that is always sending all these emissions in to all the solar system and the space. And when this is exactly in the direction of the Earth, and we know that the solar wind will take this highway that are the interplanetary magnetic field that will result from the interaction of the geomagnetic, the Earth geomagnetic field and the sun geomagnetic field. We have this interaction that will be the highway for the solar wind to arrive to our Earth. And once when this solar wind arrived here, will try to enter to the atmosphere through the poles, because it's the parts where we have that the geomagnetic field is weaker. And when this geomagnetic field, I want to show another slide of what I'm talking about. Give me 1 second. So as you can see in there, in the Earth, you have that the weaker part of the geomagnetic field will be in the poles, and this geomagnetic field can be like pushing to the south or pushing to the north. For the northern hemisphere, we need it to be pushing to the south, so it will be like more open there to let the solar wind enter and interact with the gases that are in the upper atmosphere from the 80 kilometers and upper. Let me just go back here. And what is happening with this solar cycle? What is the solar cycle? Well, we have this changing of the different polar, the different magnetic nodes, right? And they will try to switch between them, and that it's what is making all the solar flares. And we can see it like from here with the dark spots, right, in the sun, or maybe using some special filters, right, to see the crown that we can see it only during a total solar eclipse, or using filters. And if we have like too many dark spots, we will know that the sun is active enough, and we will, of course, have auroras. And this cycle it has been from the beginning, from before this approach to the maximum of this cycle has been like very, very strong. What I was saying that the last season that it was during 2022 and 2023, it was stronger than the season now from 2023 to 2024. And actually, this was during April, it was a huge solar flare that has a coronal mass ejection. And it was so intense that people were able to watch the northern lights in Texas. That is insane.
Wow.
That is latitude
yeah.
29 degrees north.
Yeah.
But the thing is that right now we're having like some problems with the forecast. Actually, all the apps that we use to forecast this, because I think that the best way to forecast is to analyze the sun, not to just receive an app, a notification in an app like, hey, there is a 30% probability to watch Northern Light now. No, the thing is that analyze the sun, analyze the activity of the sun. That will be the best way to chase the Northern Lights. For example, there was a forecast late March. We were going around Iceland with another client of mine, a Mexican photographer. And in this video, in the middle, if we believe back that day to the forecast, we were not in there this night. As this other girl is also an astrophotographer, we really wanted to reach this place to make astrophotography that night. And that was the only thing that was like, for us, it was better for us because we reached that place and we reached this storm, this geomagnetic storm that it was not forecast. It was forecast for next night, not for this night. And the thing is that as we were chasing the night sky besides the auroras, we were able to have it. And next night, that forecast another geomagnetic storm, even stronger with KP7, it didn't pass. So all the people that was meeting this place the next night, they miss the auroras because they didn't have this chance of auroras. But it's because they only stay with what forecasting the apps are saying. And the thing is that you need to understand how is this phenomena happening. That is happening because of the sun activity. And if I have sun activity, I have to measure, for example, the solar wind and how many protons per square centimeter we have, like the density. We have to measure all things that what I'm doing is watching and all these issues. I mean, all these parameters, following all these parameters in Space Weather Live or similar websites. And that's the way to hunt another light, because it's not only following what the apps are saying, is understanding what the sun is doing. I wanted to show you something else in here. I can find my other slide. Give me 1 second. Oh. And well, what I was saying about the aurora to be a scam is because we can't see the aurora exactly like the camera is watching at it. It's exactly the same with the night sky. And it's because our eyes are not adapted like biologically, like in biology, adapted to watch that spectacle in the sky, right? So I wanted to show you this. Oh, I have there about the Carrington event during 1859. Back that time, there was a collapse in telegraphs and many places, and many like electrical things start failing with that huge geomagnetic storm. So if we're gonna have it now, it will be like a very amazing and beautiful disaster. Right? We won't have cameras like
That's right. Well,
working to make
hopefully
photos.
our electronic cameras can capture it somehow.
Well, or maybe we can use our analogical cameras like the old ones.
Yeah,
That will
if
be
we can
maybe the
find
best way.
film.
Yeah, Oh yeah. So what I wanted to add to this is what people are saying about auroras to be a scam because they don't look exactly the same than the cameras. So, and as we were saying, is because our eyes, like
Yeah.
they're not prepared to watch in the night sky and to recognize the colors, right? And also, our vision, like humans, don't work only with the eyes. It's only because we have these cells that are receiving all these photons from the light,
Mhm.
and they are treating all these photons and telling and sending that as an electric impulse to our brain. And our brain is the last part that will interpret. Yeah, it will interpret these electrical impulses and tell us what we're watching. But that means that not everything that we're watching is completely real because our brain will be the last one to analyze what we're watching. So what I always like to show to people to analyze if they really think what they're watching is real is this photo. This is like an optical illusion. So what do you think is the color of the eyes of the girl?
Blue.
Yeah, many people say like turquoise or blue
Yeah.
or the thing is that the colors of her are in fact gray. And the thing is that as we're using that red filter over her, our
Oh,
brain
yeah.
trying
Check
to
that out. Let's see that again. One more time.
our brain try to compensate while we're watching them. And it's almost the same what happened with the night sky.
Yeah.
The thing is that our eyes are
Oh,
not
for sure,
telling
for
us.
sure. I mean, we only see a very narrow part of the spectrum anyways, you know.
Actually,
We
what we
don't
can
see
see
things
is like
in exact
it's
real
like
time, you know, so there's many distortions that we work with, you know. Hopefully, you know, you see a truck coming right at you in time for you to get out of the way, you know, but there are many such you know effects, you know, that you can look at where things appear to move or you know you start to recognize patterns and things. It all has to do with our mind, doesn't it?
exactly it's our brain that will interpret. We will try to interpret what our cells in our eyes are receiving from the light. So the brain is the one that has the last word, and it's not always the whole truth. So that's the thing what I try to explain when people tells me that auroras are a scam because they can't see it as they see it in the photos. But the thing is that if you do have a very, very strong aurora, you will be able to see the colors, all the colors. Uh, Under some geomagnetic storms, I have been able to watch yellow, orange, pink, the red one, the
Wow,
green,
so
but
different.
it's something that we can't really say, hey, it's going to be now. So what I recommend to people is to if you're going to some location to hunt the northern lights, well, the first thing is that you have to understand that the clouds won't allow you to watch them. So you really need to have clear sky to watch them. And also to be very aware of the solar activity. If you see that there are sunspots or maybe solar flares, that is a hint to check that that night maybe to check about the northern lights. And
Hmm.
if you see that there are notifications about the geomagnetic storm, just try to be very aware. If you have a very strong geomagnetic storm with a KP over, let me just look for the slide where I have KP. Okay, so this is KP that goes from 0 to 9.
What does KP stand for? What does
Is
it mean?
the interplanetary K index, and it will measure the geomagnetic activity.
Okay.
Just that. So the thing is that if we see that the aurora will act, give me just 1 second to go back to show you the aurora oval in here. So we know that this oval will be around the magnetic pole. It won't be around the geographic or the terrestrial or the southern or the celestial pole. It's around the magnetic pole that is not exactly in the same place than the terrestrial pole. And this oval is where aurora is acting. So if we have a higher KP, the KP0 will be almost no activity. KP1 will be in around the 66 degrees, where we have the Arctic Circle, right? And when the KP rises and get higher, the aurora will go more far, right? And it will go far as it will be nearly 2 degrees in latitude to the equator with each KP level. So if we reach maybe a KP9, we will have from 66 degrees latitude, we will reach maybe like latitude, like for example, in Texas, the one I show you back that April in 2023, where they have auroras in there. The aurora was not over Texas, but you were able to watch it like to the north, because as I said in the beginning, you can see the aurora almost 1,000 kilometers far from your place, but you have to have like very wide view to the north. In the case of Northern Hemisphere, in the case of Southern Hemisphere, to the south. That's what happened in Tasmania. That's why they can watch the southern lights. And we can't watch them here in Chile. And it is because the oval is moved from the pole, because it's around the magnetic pole. And it's pretty sad that in here there are people scamming with trips to the Antarctica or to places like very in the southernmost part of Chile. And they're trying to scam, saying that you're able to watch the southern lights in there. And that's not true. You can't watch it from Patagonia or Magallanes or Horn Cape. You can watch it from there. Actually, you cannot watch it from the Antarctica military bases that we have from Chile, that are like in the tip of the Antarctica Peninsula. It's 900 kilometers to the center of Antarctica that you can start watching the southern lights. So please don't be scammed by these companies. I wanted to tell about that, and also
Good
to be like
advice.
and to be very aware, as if you live like in medium latitudes, for example, 40 degrees, 48 degrees, I don't know, in Canada or in North America, you really have to be aware, because right now, people in the Northern Hemisphere that are making all these tours, like the people near to the Arctic Circle, won't be able to watch the Northern Lights because they have the midnight sun. But that doesn't mean that if we do have like a very strong geomagnetic storm produced by a huge flare or a coronal mass ejection, we will have the lights maybe in latitudes more near to the equator. So you have to be like very aware to that, very aware to the sun activity in this next season, because these days we will not have like this information from the Arctic Circle people, and it's going to be just on you, the responsibility of be aware about that.
So Carrie, are you leading some aurora trips yourself?
Yeah, but not right now. Actually, I'm going to Sweden next week, but it's only in scouting to start another expedition in northern Sweden and northern Norway and Finland.
Okay.
It will be a photography expedition oriented to wild photography, to the local fauna, the Arctic fauna, and also to the northern lights. We don't have northern lights now, but it will be for the expeditions that we're looking for some in the calendar to make some of these expeditions during September, to have the birds that are already awake, and during January, where we have the polar nights and the light the light during the day, those days, as we don't have the sun rising, the light is like a blue hour, magic hour during the day. So it's amazing for photography. And we have a lot of snow, like these trees that are overloaded of snow. So that's what I'm doing currently,
Okay,
traveling next week. Yeah, so I'm super
that's
excited about
awesome.
that.
That is
Yeah,
awesome. So your whole life is turned into just one grand adventure, and I love it. I think it's great.
yeah, yeah. I always say people used to say people that does things like me on traveling a lot used to say that they're nomads, digital nomads. Well, I'm not. I'm a kind of a homeless because I don't have like a place where
Mhm.
where I live. I actually don't have like my own flat or something like that because I'm always moving. But I have very good friends and I have my family that receives me when I'm back here in Chile.
Sure,
But it's cool to keep looking for new night skies, new photography experiences, to new aurora experiences in other places of the world. So it would be so cool to go to America, to go to Alaska, to watch the Northern Lights someday, or to the north of Canada also. It's
sure.
it's on my bucket list. It's part of the dream I have for the future.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, that's great. Thank you, Carrie. And I am, always excited to learn about your new images and your, the work that you do. And I try to imagine myself also in such adventures that you're on. And so, thank you for
Let's go
sharing.
someday, Scott. We need to
I
plan that. To
we
go
will
someday to
see.
have Northern Lights.
Okay,
Do
okay.
it.
Yeah, everybody tells me, so I want to go. But Carrie, thanks again. We are going to our next presenter, Robert Reeves, down in Texas. And so thanks for tuning in with us, Carrie, in Chile. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks to all. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so we are going to go to, as I mentioned, to Robert Reeves down in Texas. Robert probably knows more about the terrain of the moon than, there's probably only a handful of people on the planet that really know it as well as he does. And he makes fantastic images of the lunar terrain. So if you've been keeping up with Global Star Party and watching his work, I mean, sometimes they're so highly detailed. It looks like maybe he made a model of the terrain and photographed it, somehow. But we know that that's not true, and that these are real lunar astrophotographs. So let me bring on Robert. And Robert, thanks for tuning in and presenting with the 148th Global Star Party.
My pleasure. And trust me, it is a lot easier for me to take a lunar photo than to make a model of the moon.
I can,
My artistic
sure,
ability is, well, my sculpting ability is nil.
not gonna happen. Okay, all right. Well,
But
that's great.
um, but I'm glad to be here, and we've survived the eclipse. We've survived NEAF.
Yep,
My next
you
big
were there at
adventure,
Neve too. That's right.
yeah, my next big adventure is going to Kosovo to install the telescope in the new National Observatory over there that
That's right.
Pranvera Hyseni has um, uh, ramrodded and finally got into fruition. And we'll
Yep,
be over there in June having fun there. So,
that's great.
but in the meantime, a little bit about the moon. Carrie's
Okay.
act is going to be a tough one to follow. That was a fantastic presentation.
Oh, yeah.
But the moon is close to my heart. And I do have to mention, of course, that I did write a book about it recently. It's available on Amazon, Exploring the Moon with Robert Reeves. If you like what you see tonight, scoot on over to Amazon, do that title search, and I think you'll find something that will bring you up to speed about the moon in a hurry. So tonight, I'm going to go to screen share. Going to, hopefully you see my title slide,
Yep.
and that's a good thing. So um, now, first few slides, you've seen them before, but I like to repeat these to drill home the fact that everything you see on the moon are formed by only two primary landscape forming processes, either an impact by an asteroid, meteor, comet, or volcanism that subsequently modified that that impact or was released by an impact. So everything we see on the moon will create it only one of two ways: impacts or volcanism. So again, following a theme that I've done before, if my slide would advance, there we go.
Yeah.
I like to tell people the moon is a world that shows us, the moon shows us a world that is rugged yet serene. It is a world that is harsh yet beautiful. It is a world that is alien yet appealing. It is a world that is very tortured, yet today it is calm. And finally, it is a strange world, yet a friendly world. We can become friends with the moon by just understanding a few basic facts about it. And then it's not a stranger in the eyepiece. It's a companion for a summer night or light our way on a cold winter day or cold winter night. Tonight, what I'm going to talk about are floor fractured craters. Those of you who have been following me on Facebook on my postcards from the moon for the past week have seen that this has been my theme. So I thought I'd bring it over here to a wider audience because I think if I read the statistics correctly, there's probably about 10 times more people watching this than see my Facebook page. So let's spread the word a little bit. Floor fractured craters, a prime example is 96-kilometer diameter Posidonius here at the upper left. Floor fractured, so named because the floor of the crater is covered with cracks and rills. The original crater, Posidonius, almost for about 3.5 billion years ago, looked very traditional, kind of like what Copernicus does today. Indentation in the ground, collapsed terrace walls around the outside, a central peak in the middle. But like I said, all things on the moon are created by one of two things, either an impact or volcanism. In this case, floor fractured craters are created by both. Initially, there's an impact that creates the crater, and then there is volcanism that significantly modifies the interior of the crater. Floor fractured craters are universally found near the shoreline of the Maria. The Maria are the dark basalt fields on the moon that create the caricature of the face of the man in the moon. And these are volcanic features, of course. The Maria were formed by eruptions from subsurface magma chambers that flooded the low-lying basins and created the Maria. And a crater that formed near these Maria also tapped into the same subsurface magma chambers. The fractures in the floor of the crater created by the impact of the crater tapped down into these magma chambers, and lava flowed up from under the crater through fractures in its floor. They didn't flow over the rim of the crater and spill into it. It came up from underneath, pushed the floor of the crater upward. In the case of Posidonius here, it's the floor of the crater is actually 200 meters higher than the surrounding Maria, Maria Serenitatis to be exact. Serenitatis. It's been a long day. I'm kind of tired. But like I said, the floor of the crater volcanically pushed up to it's actually 200 meters higher than the surrounding Maria. Now, in the case of Posidonius, other volcanic activity created the very pronounced raised ridge on the east side. You can see it actually casting a shadow in this image. That ridge is almost 200 meters higher than the opposite side. So it's casting a shadow in this case. And just for artistic effect, Posidonius A, the 11-kilometer diameter crater, whacked right square in the middle of Posidonius, created a kind of a bullseye effect, and excavated down about 1.5 kilometers into the basalt. Now, bear in mind that a crater the size of Posidonius is probably going to be about 3.5, 4 kilometers deep. So as deep as Posidonius A is in the middle of it, it didn't even begin to excavate down to the original floor of Posidonius. So moving on to our next example, also up in the northeastern side of the moon, up above Mare Serenitatis, the crater pair of Hercules and Atlas, both of the mythological Greek and Roman strongmen, lay side by side in this area of the moon. Hercules on the left, about 70 kilometers in diameter. Atlas on the right, 88 kilometers in diameter. Although they're next to each other and considered an observational pair, they formed about 1 billion years apart. Atlas on the right formed first during a time of more intense volcanic activity on the moon. So its interior was pushed up by subsurface volcanic uplift and created the fractures that crisscross across its face, giving it a kind of an oatmeal cookie appearance. Now, Hercules on the west, like I said, formed about 1 billion years later and experienced much more subdued volcanic activity. Its interior is smooth and flat, as opposed to Atlas being very rough, elevated, and covered with rills. If you look closely at Atlas, you can see some small secondary craters inside of Atlas. This is literally the result of the sand that Hercules kicked in Atlas's face when Hercules formed 1 billion years later and showered the interior of Atlas with debris and created those secondary craters. Notice a buried, almost obscure crater protruding out from underneath Atlas's northwestern rim. You barely see its rim. It's almost 55 kilometers in diameter, but after the creation of both Atlas and Hercules, this crater is almost buried. You can barely see it, just its rim protruding up, creating just enough shadow to see the lobe-like protrusion going northwest from Atlas. So lots of action up there, pre-existing craters, new craters, even newer craters. So the moon is evolving, ever evolving, and over the periods of billions of years, crater overlays crater. Moving on a little further south, we're now on the eastern side of Mare Fecunditatis, getting near the equatorial region on the moon. Petavius is the 7th largest crater on the near side of the moon, but in this case, it's also a floor fractured crater. We see the volcanic uplift has pushed its floor up. It's fairly shallow. A measure of the form of a crater is what we call its depth over diameter ratio, D over D. Depth being a certain distance, diameter being a certain distance. Generally, the smaller the crater, the higher this ratio. Excuse me, I got that backwards. The smaller. A small crater may have a depth of, say, 1 kilometer, be 5 kilometers wide. But we're getting up into these huge craters, the D over D ratio gets progressively bigger. In the case of Petavius, its depth versus its diameter is 1 over 88. So the higher that ratio, the shallower the crater is. Instead of being a crater, it's more like a pie pan, very shallow and broad. In this case, we see this rather pronounced rill protruding westward from the central peak, and then another one branching northward and ending in a fork. And this is actually the same rill, Ramapetavius. It bisects the central peak, and due to the shadows on the central peak, you cannot see that channel marches over the central peak and continues on as that north-facing rill. It scoots off about 70 kilometers from the central peak to the outer rim, western rim, and then branches upward about 45 kilometers. And it gives the impression of a clock face showing about 20 minutes to 12. Other curiosities in the region, though, look just to the southeast into the shadow from Batavia. And you notice a lengthy ridge protruding into the sunlight. That's the outer rim, eastern rim of Vallis Palitz, and I cannot pronounce that. It's a German name with P's and T's and Z's in it, and my tongue simply will not create the proper word. But it's a fascinating feature to look at, and it's an example of one of the few valley features on the moon. And scooting on down between Mare Tranquillitatis and like I said, I'm kind of tired today. Words are evaporating from my head. Between between Tranquillitatis and Fecunditatis, right in the channel in between those two, Maria, we've got this little floor fractured crater, Terentius. Now, it's a significant little crater, but it's not exactly one of the ones that roll off your tongue first when you're talking about popular lunar features. But it is a floor fractured crater, the theme of our talk tonight. And here we see the arcing, curved ridges inside Terentius that follow the inner rim of the crater walls. Now there's another class of craters, we'll see an example of it pretty soon, called concentric craters that have a true complete circular inner wall inside the crater's wall, natural wall. And that concentric craters, those were created by volcanic eruptions that forced up through a circular crack around the crater that was formed by the impact that created it. It provided the circular conduit to allow basalts to flow up and form a complete circular inner wall. Now, there's a size limit to concentric craters, and they're typically no larger than 15 kilometers. But here on Terentius, we see this inner wall very clearly, not completely all the way around, not 360 degrees, but we can see that even though Terentius is significantly larger than a concentric crater typically is, that inner wall tried very hard to form. So I consider some floor fractured craters to be failed concentric craters. And on the other hand, concentric craters are just baby floor fractured craters. So moving on and looking at the next one. Also up in the northern latitudes, again above Mare Serenitatis, we have a feature dead center in the field of view here called Lacus Mortis, the Lake of the Dead. This was named by Giovanni Riccioli back in the 17th century. And at the time, they didn't recognize some of these features for what they really are. He designated it as a lake, a circular lake. But today we recognize it as a 150 kilometer diameter crater that filled in with lava, basalt, completely paved over the central peak. In fact, the basalt within Lacus Mortis bulges upward 200 meters. So it's bulging in the middle. And then the crater Berg crashed right square in the middle of it, gave it that bullseye appearance. But Lacus Mortis still qualifies as a floor fractured crater because of the series of rills crisscrossing the western side of the basalt plain within Lacus Mortis. Those were created by volcanic uplift. So even though it's classified historically as a lake or Lacus on the moon, it is a floor fractured crater. Moving down toward the southwest, now down below Mare Nubium, another really good example of a floor fractured crater. And the upper right, we see um, the I'm having memory problems. Patatas. Potato, yeah, patatas. I was having fun with somebody about that the other day.
You are doing way better than we are.
Oh,
So-
I apologize for being.
No, 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 no.
I did an awful lot of mechanical work today on my some equipment that my son owns.
Okay.
For 50
Yeah,
years.
plus you've been running all over the country.
Yeah, well,
You
this is
know,
true.
and I get it. So
Blame
I
it
do
on
the
jet
same
lag.
thing.
Blame it on jet lag.
There we go.
So clearing my mind, patatas. Yes, I was having fun with somebody the other day about that because they confused this one with Patavius, and it's
Mhm.
Patavius patatas, potato. Uh, but nonetheless, another magnificent floor fractured crater that's about 100 kilometers in diameter, and the central peak just barely protruding above this lava flood that completely filled it in, and um, the salt fill within it is again about 150 meters higher than the Maria just north of it. So considerable amount of volcanic activity pushing up into this crater. It almost just a little bit of the central peak left showing. The circular rills are just inside the rim of it, uh, giving it the designation of a floor fractured crater. Now look just a little bit to the left of Patatas and notice the shadowed um, crater that has another rim inside of it. That is one of the examples of concentric crater I was talking about. And this particular one is called Hesiotis A, a satellite crater of Hesiotis, which is the smaller crater just merged cheek to cheek with Patatas. And again, this inner rim pushed up in a very similar way to the basalts that push up into these floor fractured craters. And just for funsies, take a look at Rima Hesiotis, that long linear rill streaking down to the southwest, and then go all the way over to the left, and the circular ring of the ghost crater Keys, a crater that existed prior to the flooding, basalt flooding that created Mare Nubium and left only the ring of the rim protruding. And then just to the lower left of Keys, look at the little tiny shield volcano with a caldera on its top.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that we call that Keys Pi, like the Greek letter pi.
That's very cool.
And moving on, right square in the middle of the moon, face of the moon, we've got the triple crater combination, very popular observational target. Ptolemaeus at the top, Arzachel in the middle, and Alphonsus in the middle and Arzachel at the bottom. The lower two are floor fractured craters. So we get a twofer, two of them in one view here. Alphonsus on the top. I've previously talked about the volcanic activity within it because we can see the ash deposits around the volcanic cinder cones at the 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5:30 position. But the crater is also a floor fractured crater. Its floor is elevated, pushed up by volcanism. We see the rills and cracks arcing around the east side of the crater's interior. And notice the ridge, vertical ridge bisecting the middle of it. This is pushed up several hundred meters higher by volcanic uplift than the rest of the crater floor. And then down south of it, also our Zachel crater, floor fractured crater because of the real creeping around the little crater in the middle that Arzachel A that is kind of almost exactly balancing Arzachel's offset central peak. So both features, neither one directly in the middle, but they kind of balance each other and put a little good symmetry there. No, I've got one more to go. I call this the granddaddy of all floor fractured craters, Gassendi up on northern Mare Humorum. Now, it's not the granddaddy for any geologic feature or a reason like that. I call it the granddaddy of all floor fracture craters because it's the first one that caught my attention back in 1962. Back in those days, I was active with the local satellite observing team here in San Antonio, Texas. And my good friend Paul Maley, he's now a well-known eclipse expedition leader. He and I were part of that, and he loaned me what was called a 5-inch apogee scope. It was a special telescope designed specifically for observing very faint satellites. And I aimed that thing at the moon one night after a satellite run, and it was just the right time for Gassendi to be on the terminator, and it just stuck in my memory for the past decade, well, half century. It's one of the things that really endeared me about the moon early on. But here we see that like all other floor fracture craters, it's on the edge of Amaria. It's about 111 kilometers in diameter, and its floor, again, uplifted by volcanic activity from below, pushed the floor of the crater up almost level with the surrounding Maria below it. The basalt that within Gassendi did not breach over the rim from Mare Humorum. It came up from below and created the series of fractures and rills. Now, notice up in the northern part of Gassendi, those rills tend to taper off and become more muted. That's because look at 33-kilometer Gassendi A laying on Gassendi's upper rim. And then look at the inner wall of Gassendi below it. It doesn't have the typical stair-step appearance of normal craters where the wall collapses into terraced walls. This is a more smooth landslide, and that was created by the impact of Gassendi A. The seismic shock collapsed the inner wall, and it tumbled down and obscured part of the northern region of the rills within Gassendi. So floor fracture craters, like I said, a different class of crater. They started out as a traditional complex crater that was the excavation into the moon, filled in with basalt, leveled it, created the fractures within it. So they just add a little bit more spice to cruising around the moon and prowling the geologic features, the different things to be seen. So I encourage you, next time you explore the moon, look around for some of these floor fractured craters. They're very distinctive. And now that you know what they are, I hope you appreciate them a little bit more. So with that, I will say that there is much to love on the moon. The moon is my playground, and I invite you to come join me on my playground. It's been fun. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Alrighty. I'm trying to
Yeah,
stop
I'll take care
sharing.
of that. I'll take care of that for you.
There.
Perfect.
Alrighty.
Wonderful presentation, Robert.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So we will move down from Texas, just go straight down, and we're going to Brazil. And Marcello Souza is waiting for us. He is our Southern Hemisphere, South American astronomer, professor of astronomy, and an incredible icon of astronomy outreach and public education. You know, he inspires youth, thousands of youth, to get involved in exploring the night sky, protecting dark skies. Heck, they even sent some sat cubes into space, and he is every year he doubles down on what he does to get people interested in science and astronomy and spreading the word. Marcello, thank you very much for coming on to Global Star Party.
Hi, nice to see all of you. Thank you very much for the invitation, Scott. Ever is a great pleasure to be
Thank
here.
you. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm recording.
Marcello is also the editor of Skies Up magazine, so there is a new issue coming up pretty soon. So,
Yes, and I'm recovering from our event. Every
ah,
year we organize an international meeting here in our city, but this year we had a challenge, a big challenge. Thank you, Scott, because Scott introduced me to the our Sky team, and we already built an observatory here in 6 days,
oh,
to participate in the Our Sky network. Our Sky
wow.
network.
Okay,
I will
wonderful.
show the pictures to. I'll try again to show. Is it okay? No?
It's coming. Yeah, you just need to take it in presentation mode.
No. Is okay?
There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Okay.
Okay. This is our international meeting that finished last Saturday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago. These are the people that participate. Have a lot of students that receive certificates for the project that they developed. We have people from other countries here, and this is a report that was shown in a Brazilian TV, showing what's happening in our events. We had the opportunity to talk about new technologies and the astrophotography, dark skies, and the astrotourism, and also, we had the opportunity to talk about astrobiology during the events, and we had workshops and many different activities organized during the events. And for us, ever is a great opportunity to begin new projects. Then we had the participation of Jeffrey Wallace that's here, that was involved in projects with NASA and many universities from United States, and now he's moving to Brazil. He's not American research that is moving to Brazil,
That's
and
cool.
is bringing new. I also we had the opportunity to talk about the sun during the events. We organized a sun observation, a public sun observation in a public square of our city, and we celebrate the anniversary of 150 years of birth of one of the person that was the pioneer of astronomy in our city in Brazil. And ever is a great opportunity to motivate new students, to motivate the public, and to show that participating in scientific events is an opportunity to know new models, new theories, and know what's happening now, what is being developed. And I will show the results and the big challenge that we had, that was the opportunity to build a new observatory here in our city. And this is José Carlos Diniz, that one of the most famous Brazilian astrophotographer, Diniz. He has 80 years old,
Uh-huh.
and he is a doctor. He is a cardiologist, and he loves astronomy and
Wow.
astrophotography.
He
And
looks
we
very
are
active.
celebrating.
Mm,
And he is Jeffrey Wallace, that work at NASA in many different universities in the United States. That's he is. And this is a show in Brazilian TV, a report about what's happening here in our events. Here are some images, of the. This is Fernando Fabiani, that's responsible for the dark sky in Uruguay. And we also had the participation of a person that has a TV program in Colombia about astronomy. That is Jorge Salazar, that is here. He has a program in Colombia, on TV in Colombia about astronomy and the astronautics. This was a great opportunity for us. This is our team, the team of our astronomy club, the Louis Cruz Astronomy Club. That's a response for the part of the speakers that participate in the events. These are the astrophotography workshop that Denise organized here. And this was the inauguration of the observatory. We received from our sky the equipments that we are installing now. This is a 80-inch Rasa Celestron telescope that is the first automated that we are going to use there. And now I will show the observatory that we built in 6 days. We worked 6 days.
Okay.
We are inside the
So this is a
observatory.
big challenge to all of you watching, to build your own observatory in 6 days.
Yes, it's a wood. We had wood walls.
Yeah.
Here, people are inside the observatory. We have internet. We have power supply. Have the electricity. We have everything automated. We can open the roof and close the roof with a motor, an engine.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
here are the image of the observatory. Near, it's not ready in this image. I'm showing the process to build. This is, you have already the walls, you have the roof, and you have the motor here, but it's not with the door. Here, when they were building, is the size is have 3 meters by 3 meters, 3 meters by 3 meters. Is a square observatory, 3 meters inside. We use wood. Here is the representative of our sky that visited us. That's Giro Newton. That is brought the equipment. My daughter inside, with it's not from our sky. This is our equipment that we use there, and you can see here the circle here in the floor. We have here a small part of the observatory, the circle, that is separated from the floor of the observatory, and it has a height of 1 meter deeper in the soil to where we are installing the telescope, the main telescope of the observatory. But it was a big challenge to build in 6 days, to be ready for the meeting with all and it is located in a region protected because it is in a protected forest near the ocean, the forest that you have near the ocean. And this region, the Reserva Caruara, is where we develop astronomy projects. And they already have photo mitigation there because of the turtles, because they need to protect the turtles. That's you have the ocean is located in front of the Reserva Caruara, the coast. Then they need to protect the coast, and inside the reserve, on the headquarters, you have lights according to all the rules to protect the turtles and the night sky. And inside the protected forest, they don't have electricity and lights. Here is the activity developed in the public square of the solar observation. We had the participation of many people. Ever is a special moment to show the sun in a safe way for the population. Here our team there. Many people participate. And not to say that I didn't talk about astronomy, I something that I read these days is about Saturn. And here is a painting of Galileo. Né? As we know, in 1610, Galileo observed Saturn, and here in one of his books, the Annuncios, you have here he draw what he saw in Saturn. He didn't identify the rings. He imagined that it was what she was looking for giant moons, né? In orbit of the planets, is what he imagined. These moons appeared fixed in position, né? Unlike the four satellites of Jupiter. And what happened that is curious, this is the reason I'm talking about this, because the moon that Galileo was seeing disappeared in 1612. And he didn't know what happened because the moon disappeared. What he imagined that were moons orbiting the planet. Many explanations, they try many explanations to explain Saturn's strange appendage, which grew, shrunk, and disappeared every 15 years since the observation made from Galileo. Only in 1655 that Huygens proposed the correct explanation for what is around Saturn. Saturn is what happened every 15 years. Saturn, strange appendage, are a flattened disk of material, as proposed by Huygens, in Saturn's equatorial plane, which appear to vanish when the Earth is in the direction of the plane of the disk, of the rings. And why I'm talking about this? Because in 2025, this is how we will see Saturn. We will not see the rings from Earth. Then this year, we will have the opportunity to see part of the rings, to show that we have rings around Saturn, but next year probably we will not see the rings. And this month we can see Saturn, begin to see Saturn. For us in Brazil here, we can see at 3 a.m. in our city here in Brazil, and we are preparing to organize many activities prepare to next year. We show that people can't see the rings, probably can't see the rings because of the position. Now, and this is something that began. The first who saw this happen was Galileo in 1612. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Marcello, thanks very much. And congratulations on, building an observatory in such a short amount of time, So,
Hey, it was a big
I'm
challenge
not
because
even sure that the concrete was dry, in 6 days.
yes, we have three teams working, three teams. One for the concrete, one
Yeah.
that made the walls, that we bought
Okay.
wood to make the walls. Then they prepared the walls. Soon that was possible, they bring the walls to the place where they already have the concrete, okay. And then another group that was responsible to bring the power supply, the energy. We had tubes of energy and also the internet to the place, because everything will be controlled by internet. Will be
Yes.
automatic. And thank you
Wow.
very much to introduce me with the Our Sky. Thank you very much,
Yeah, I'm
Scott.
glad it's all working out. Regarding where the pier will go in the observatory, did you guys take care to isolate the
Yes, it is
pier?
isolated and
Okay,
1 meter deeper in the
1 meter
soil.
deeper. Okay, all right. Well,
Yes,
that's good. That's good.
60 centimeters of diameter,
Uh-huh.
separated from the,
The
the
surrounding, yeah.
soil of the observatory, the floor, and 1 meter deeper with concrete
Yeah, that's good.
inside.
Wow.
Then
Okay.
I hope that they will not vibrate when people walk
Yeah,
around, né? Because
I'm
it's
sure.
separate from the other part of the observatory, and is in a very dark place, né?
Mm,
Very dark place
wonderful.
with no light pollution and
Wonderful.
with nothing in the horizon around.
Yeah,
Né?
yeah.
Only the
The
headquarter
perfect
of the
spot. That's
reserve
great.
that is only one floor, and
Yeah.
around you have nothing in the horizon.
Mm. And so
Is
when
it?
will the telescope arrive? When will you be
It
ready?
is here.
Oh, it's
Everything
there
already
already.
arrived.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, we are planning to install this week. They are supporting us.
Okay.
A technical from our sky
Yeah.
arrived last week, Wednesday here, with the telescope
Yeah.
and with the camera, the mount, the computer. They brought everything. Uh,
Wow. That's great.
Now,
Well,
now
congratulations,
Now our challenge is to install and to calibrate everything.
Sure.
That will be a big challenge to
Sure.
calibrate. To
Yeah.
install, it is easy part. To calibrate, that will be hard for us here. But now we are working this. I hope that next week everything will be working.
Yeah.
Everything will be controlled by internet.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
roof, they will open and close the roof by internet and the emails, everything will be done. And we also will have one telescope from us at the observatory. Uh,
Wonderful.
it
That's
was
great.
a fantastic opportunity that
Well,
they feel,
you'll have to give us a follow-up report, maybe next week on the
yes.
installation and all
I
of that
hope that
stuff.
next week everything will be working. But
That's great.
I don't know because it's something different for us because we need to move for a place that is far 1 hour from where I live. Uh,
Ah,
it's 40 kilometers far
yeah.
from us
Not easy to
here.
just get over there. Yeah, but
Uh,
it's
but
dark.
I will be there with frequency
Okay.
to check everything and to be working. We have also they will are supporting us to have people there
Yeah.
to make the maintenance of the observatory and also to solve technical issues. Then and they also have the security there. It's a
No, that's
safe
wonderful.
place.
Everything
Uh,
it needs. That's
uh,
great.
Now only needs
Congratulations
to
again.
work.
That's great.
Thank you very much, Scott, because you that are responsible for
No,
us
no.
to have the opportunity.
I just connect friends, that's all. So
But
that's good. That's good.
thank
All
you
right.
very
Well,
much.
wonderful. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Marcello.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to finish off 148th Global Star Party. I've got a couple of more videos that I think will interest you. One of them is about our near and dear star, the sun, and also about a new mission to observe aurora. So I think if Carrie is still watching this, I think she's going to really like that. Take care and good night, Marcello. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Boa noite para todos. Boa noite. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, here we go. Well, I hope you really enjoyed those videos. I see Jim Hendrickson is asking me to link to this video, please. I will, when I end out the program, just keep watching the chat, and I'll try to find the link and post it there for you. Where I get these videos from is NASA's Goddard Media Archive, and also from the ESA Media Archive. These two organizations put together the best programs of all, I think. And it's really cool to see some of the historical stuff, like the newsreel that I have for Palomar Observatory, for example, where you go into archive.org and you go into their media archive. And so there's a lot of cool stuff. There are, famous astronomers and stuff you can find in newsreels and in presentations that are, now out of copyright, and you can freely use them for educational purposes like we use them here. I am a NASA Solar System Ambassador, and I love sharing the NASA stuff. They just do such incredible production work and all the rest of it. So, but anyways, I hope you guys got a nice feeling from this Global Star Party, and had some nice presentations, that it was the right mix of, these kinds of videos and presentations that we have from our presenters that want to do outreach, that really want to, share what they know and to help you in your outreach work, so that's the deal in being in this community, is that we're all out to help each other, and to wake up people to learning more about science, because the world's got big problems today, growing population, big issues that challenge us, but also as dangerous and as tough as the world might seem in the future. It is also wrapped in incredible adventure and hope, and there's exciting times ahead. So anyways, thanks again, and we will see you on the next Global Star Party, our 149th. I'm real excited that the 150th is coming up. I can't believe that we've done 150 Star Party events, so take care, and as my friend Jack Horkheimer always used to say, keep looking up. Good night.
When considering the possibility of life beyond Earth, we look for three main ingredients. The first one is key elements such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and sulfur. The second is a source of energy. And the third, and perhaps most important, is the existence of liquid water.
Water is a necessary solvent in all chemical reactions that have to do with life. Energy is required to drive these chemical reactions, and organic matter is the material from which all life that we know of is made.
Life as we know it requires liquid water. Scientists believe that life on Earth started in our oceans. Now, through our exploration of the solar system, we've realized that the moons around the giant planets have the right conditions, that there could be liquid water underneath their surfaces. So that really sort of expands our whole concept of where you could have a habitat, where we might find life.
Water is fairly common in the universe. We've seen traces of water in large molecular clouds between stars. We've seen traces of water in protoplanetary disks. We've also seen traces of water as water vapor in the atmospheres of giant planets around other stars. And we know that water is in the atmospheres and interiors of our solar system's giant planets. So we know that water is ubiquitous throughout the universe. As far as liquid water, that's a little less common. Earth is the only planet in the solar system where we see liquid water at our surface. Moons such as Enceladus and Europa may have liquid water beneath layers of ice.
We're really expanding our understanding of what makes a place habitable. Instead of just looking for an Earth-like terrestrial planet that's a very specific distance from its star, we're learning that there can be hidden habitats that are underneath icy layers, and they can be a lot further out from the sun.
So we believe icy moons in the solar system actually harbor kilometers-thick oceans underneath their icy surfaces. These icy moons and their subsurface oceans may be some of the best places to search for life elsewhere in our solar system.
Enceladus is one of Saturn's many moons, and it's a very small moon that people tend to kind of ignore because it's so small, about 500 kilometers in diameter. But decades ago, in the 1980s, from ground-based observing, we found out that the location of Enceladus relative to Saturn happened to coincide nicely with Saturn's E-ring. And so we were thinking that Enceladus had something to do with the E-ring particulates, the icy material, but we weren't sure. What we later find from Cassini was that we directly determined that there are indeed plumes jetting out of the south polar region from cracks in the south pole of Enceladus in the crust, and it's dominantly water-rich material, just jetting out into space. And so the way we saw it, Cassini happened to be located where Enceladus was backlit from the sun. And so you saw this curtain of beautiful diffuse material jetting out of the south polar region. Quite breathtaking, actually. Even more, we were able to use the different complements of instruments on board Cassini to go after the chemical composition of the plumes. And that's where things got really interesting. So number one, that's because of liquid water. There's definitely a liquid water reservoir. It's subsurface below the icy crust, but that is there. Number two, the chemical composition of the plumes told us that there's a lot of organics, things that make up amino acid and things on life that are very interesting. And number three, what we were really looking for is a source of energy. On Enceladus, photons from the sun aren't going to work because you can't penetrate the tens of kilometers of icy crust to get down to where the liquid water reservoir is. But what Enceladus does have is hydrothermal vents. It's very hot into liquid water that has a lot of analogies with the ocean floor, where we have a form of releasing chemical energy via something called serpentinization. And so we think that Enceladus might have that potential to have an energy source being chemical, not sunlight. And so you put all that together, and Enceladus has all the ingredients, or most of what we need for life. That makes it a very astrobiologically interesting object to study.
Europa is one of the largest moons of Jupiter, and we believe that Europa has a subsurface ocean tens to hundreds of kilometers thick. And so this ocean may be one of the best places to search for life in the solar system.
There's been 3 space missions that have provided evidence for Europa harboring liquid water. The first one is Voyager in the late 70s. The second one is the Galileo mission in the late 90s. And most recently, Hubble, which detected plume-like emission from hydrogen and oxygen, which is closely related to the existence of water beneath its surface.
These plumes may be directly ejected through cracks in the surface of the moon, and therefore what we're seeing in water vapor plumes is the actual ocean water from the subsurface of the moon.
As these plume particles are ejected to space, solar radiation is going to excite these water particles, creating vibrational modes. Now, these vibrational modes are signatures that can be detected at infrared wavelengths by the Keck Observatory. So we observed Europa on 17 days. What we found is that the majority of observations have no presence of water. However, on one of those days, we detected water. We detected H2O. In the past, Hubble provided indirect measurements of water by detecting hydrogen and oxygen. But now we have directly detected water for the first time.
Both the Webb telescope and the Europa Clipper mission will give us a much more detailed picture of the surface of Europa, its cracks and crevices, detailed pictures of the water vapor, as well as other molecules that may also be emanating from the subsurface of Europa. So both of these missions will give us a great picture of whether Europa is truly habitable.
Titan is a moon of Saturn. It's the second largest moon in the solar system, and it is about 2 times larger than Earth's moon and actually bigger than the planet Mercury. And Titan is also interesting. It's the only moon in our solar system with an atmosphere. It's surrounded by sort of an envelope of gaseous nitrogen, just like our own Earth is. Titan was first discovered by telescope observation back in the mid-1600s. The first spacecraft observations were made of Titan during flybys through the outer solar system. That was in the late 70s and in the 80s. But we really were able to explore Titan in depth with the Cassini-Huygens mission. The Huygens probe was dropped into the atmosphere of Titan, and it made measurements of chemistry, and it took images as it fell to the surface. And that was back in 2005. And since then, the Cassini orbiter made over 100 close flybys of Titan.
Cassini, in its design with the different instruments, we purposely were picking instruments that could go into longer wavelengths into the infrared so we could really understand the moon. We were able to basically peel back the layers of Titan to really see what was below, and it was remarkable, very Earth-like.
The landscape is similar to Earth's in many, many ways, but with a little bit of a twist. So on Titan, you can find dunes, you find lakes, there are river channels. The atmosphere is very dense, and you can get clouds and smog, and you even get rain.
We saw winds, we saw seasons, and one really important thing we saw was liquids pooling in the polar regions on the surface, a lot of it.
But because Titan is so cold, those features are all made of very exotic materials compared to what we would find on Earth. So the lakes and the rain are made of liquid methane. The crust that forms the surface of Titan is actually water ice, but it's so cold that it's as hard as rock. And in the atmosphere, we get this organic chemistry that forms large organic molecules and particulates. They fall down to the surface and then behave like dust or like sand does.
So it makes us want to go back to really understand the complex organic environment of that surface and what it means for either past life or maybe future life.
Dragonfly is a mission that was just selected by NASA to fly to Titan and arrive in the mid-2030s. Dragonfly is going to make a whole bunch of measurements to help us understand the environment on Titan and its potential for habitability. We'll be taking measurements of the atmosphere. That includes things like pressure, temperature, winds. We'll probe the surface to try to understand what materials the surface is made out of. We'll also be drilling into the surface to look for the types of organic molecules that are present and to try to see if we can find any examples of compounds that mimic the types of building blocks we know we need for life on Earth. We don't really know how life started on Earth. We don't exactly know what the chemical environment of Earth was like before life started. So with Titan, we have this really unique opportunity. There are times in Titan's past where there could be liquid water on the surface. Impact craters can generate impact melt, and there's a potential for possible cryovolcanism to erupt some liquid water onto the surface. And so we know that there's a rich organic chemistry going on in the atmosphere. We know that's depositing to the surface. If there were times where those organics and the liquid water environments were mixing, then there may be some really interesting chemistry taking place. When you have these processes operating for hundreds of millions of years, how far can they get you down that path of chemical complexity? And can we see reactions and molecules that start to look something like what we think of as essential elements for our biochemistry for life on Earth?
In the future, looking forward as opposed to looking back and thinking about Titan as a chemical laboratory for the prebiotic Earth, I like to look forward thinking about what's going to happen when the sun evolves and warms up and the habitable zone actually moves out to where Titan is. And it will. You have all the organics, you're going to have a source of energy. All we have to do is melt the frozen water, and we're going to have a pool of organics just embedded in liquid. Titan might actually have a chance at that point to harbor life.
So when we think about ocean worlds, it's good to compare them to what we know about Earth. In total proportion, Earth is about 0.1% water. An ocean world is a body that has, in proportion, about 10 times more water than Earth does. And when we think of the TRAPPIST planets, those planets have about 50 times more water in proportion to what Earth does. Ocean worlds do appear to be common in our galaxy. As far back as the early 2000s, we had astronomers, some of them still here at NASA Goddard, that suggested that we would have ocean worlds orbiting low-mass stars. Recently, we've looked at about 52 exoplanets, and these are low-mass exoplanets. And what we found is, of these 52 planets, 1 out of every 4 may be an ocean planet. And when it comes to these ocean planets, over half of them may be ice-covered ocean worlds. And so Enceladus and Europa may serve as small-scale analogs of these planets.
So there are a number of different ways to search for life on planets around other stars. But the key method is the study of the atmospheres. We can search for signs of life, biosignatures we call them, things like oxygen, water vapor, carbon dioxide, even more unusual biosignatures, things like chlorofluorocarbons or other things that are only produced by intelligent life. By looking for these key constituents of planetary atmospheres that signal life, we can discover life forms on other planets that we could never actually visit in our lifetime. So this is very analogous to how we study the atmospheres of moons and planets in our own solar system, and really makes the connection between studying the plumes of Europa and the atmospheres of planets around other stars.
What I would like to see is the definition of a habitable zone expanded. We don't want to keep thinking too narrowed about liquid on the surface, but broaden the scope and really try to embrace other worlds that might seem too far from the host star and frozen out when they really aren't frozen at all. At great depths, they harbor a warm, hydrothermal-driven, liquid water environment.